Right, here we go. Let's do this. Sorry for being a little bit late. I see it's now 10:07, so 7 minutes late. Unfortunately, that means that I'm now washed as a content creator. It's over. But yeah, thank you guys for bearing with me. You might notice, at least hopefully, that the audio sounds maybe a little bit better. Hopefully it's going through both channels now. Shout out to the people in the stream on Thursday that sort of gave me some advice on how to fix this. Few YouTube videos in, and I think I found my solution. It's actually a pretty easy fix, but you guys already know what's coming at this point. I'm refreshing my phone to try and get the stream link. I'll get it up on Twitter, and then we'll get some people in here. We'll check the chat. Say hello if you're in here on this beautiful Sunday morning. And then we're going to talk some football. We got a good week, too, coming up here. I'm excited. All right. For as many times as I've done this, it still is just such a clunky process. There's got to be a way to like schedule these streams and stuff. I will probably try and figure that out, but copy link and paste. All right. Broncos country, let's ride. Let's do this. Let's see. We got 3 people in here so far. We got Caden in here. How does it feel to be the first channel to come up when you type Dr. Pigs? Pretty good, honestly. It is kind of like an ego boost. Like when I look up Dr. Pigskin and it's me that comes up. So that is pretty sweet. Dr. Pigs, I'm assuming you just got lazy and you didn't want to type the kin, but we'll take it. We got ZJ13 Goat in here saying there are some good games this week. Yeah, there are. I'm actually really excited. As a little bit of a teaser for one of the good games, I've got the Mahomes jersey on today. We got Chiefs Jaguars. We've got Ravens Bengals. The Sunday night game is awesome. Patriots Dolphins. We got some really good games. And we've got some games that like maybe aren't high profile matchups, but just based on how week 1 went, we're going to learn a lot about some teams this week. Still early on in the season, but I don't know. We're going to learn some more stuff today, I feel like. Week 1, some weird stuff happens. Week 2 is when you start to like make statements and show me something a little bit. Gabe says, salutations from Raymond James Stadium. Go Bucks, baby. Go Bucks. That's crazy. So this is your first regular season home game you've been working, right? That's pretty sweet. And the Bucks are playing, I feel bad. Oh, they're playing the Bears. Okay. Honestly, Buccaneers favorites at home, probably, right? I don't know. My Sunday ticket gonna come in handy this week. Hey, I'm jealous, man. That Sunday ticket package, like, it's pretty nice to have, especially if you can get like the quad box. You can get 4 games going at once. That's pretty sweet. I was really excited when it was announced that Sunday ticket would be part of YouTube TV. I like assumed that it was just going to be free with YouTube TV. I didn't know you needed to pay extra for it. So I unfortunately don't have it, even though I have YouTube TV. But man, especially like on a weekend like this where my favorite team, the Vikings, isn't playing. We have Red Zone, though. Red Zone comes with NFL Plus. I gave NFL Plus their plug on Thursday, though. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but got some more people in here now. 5 people getting in here. Gabe says, while I have time, could you Cliff Notes prediction Chicago versus Tampa Bay and Seattle versus Detroit? All right, you're a busy man, so we'll jump into those games first. Obviously, those are the ones that you have the most riding on. So in about a minute or two, when we jump into predictions and just talking about it, we'll try and get those in because I know you've got work, obviously. Henry's in here. Morning, doctor. Good morning, Henry. How's it going? Got my coffee on. Dude, I respect you for getting up for these streams. Early in the morning over there. Hey, how about that game last night? Colorado State, huh? Man, Colorado, they might, we'll see. They've got a few big tests coming up. Your parents are getting it for free through Verizon. That's clutch. That's awesome. Man, that's a sweet deal. I might have to talk to my parents about that. Be like, hey, is there any way we can do that? All right. We're going to switch on over now to the other screen. You're going to see OBS for a sec. This is how I stream. Say what up. 5 Erics. Hopefully you guys can still hear me okay. It looks like on the audio mixer, it's maybe a little bit quieter than normal. Although, as Professor Shumway taught me over at UGA, you don't really want to get into that orange. But how's the audio sounding? Does it sound a little bit better? Is it coming through both speakers equally now? Is it not quite as imbalanced? I'm hoping that whatever change I made worked. And Henry says, I've got some hot takes on that CU-CSU game. Go ahead and put them on me while I get these matchups pulled up here. I'm curious. I'll admit I actually didn't watch the game. Me and Christine were playing Wii Sports Resort last night, but I was following it along on my phone. So I'm curious. As we get these scores pulled up here, we're going to dive in. We'll start with Bears-Bucks, since, that is the game of the week here. It's fine on my end. Good. All right, good to hear. Good to hear. I'm glad the audio is working out. I'm wearing the Mahomes jersey today, by the way. Not just because, it's a big game for the Kansas City Chiefs trying to bounce back, but it's also his birthday today. So, I don't know. I've had this for a while. You know me. I like Mahomes. Gonna rep it a little bit. Jack is in here. Good morning, Jack. How's it going, man? It's been a while. We got to get you on Xbox sometime. I miss the sound of your voice. How you doing? All right, so Henry says, I think it's embarrassing to rush the field against a CSU team that you were 20-point favorites against at home and a CSU team that has been a bottom 5 SBS team for the last decade. CU needs to be humbled in a bad way. All right, so a little bit of spice and pop here from Henry. I like it. So, yeah, for those that didn't see the game, Colorado rushed the field after a dramatic overtime win, and as it always seems to be, when there's a rushing to the field or a storming to the court in college sports, there's a bit of controversy. Some people don't really seem to like it. Henry saying CU needs to be humbled. I could see why, if you don't like Colorado, they might rub you the wrong way. They run their mouth a little bit. They talk. They got the shades going on. I don't know. Again, and I say this as someone that is not as deeply invested in college football. It's ironic because I'm a bit of a traditionalist and an old head for NFL, but I don't know. When it comes to rushing the field, I don't care that much. I mean, they're college kids. They just saw their team who won one game last year or something like that, beat their rival in dramatic fashion in overtime. Yeah, CSU might stink, but do you really think any of the kids that rushed the field last night care? They probably just went out there, they rushed the field, and then they hung out with their friends and partied throughout the town the rest of the night. I get it. I don't know. As someone that's never rushed the field and probably will never be allowed to rush the field because Georgia's too good, I respect it. I don't know. It's fun. It's college sports. Gabe says, you kind of got to act like you've been there. Pride comes before the fall. But they haven't been there, though. That's the thing. Colorado hasn't really been there. I don't know. I get the other side, but I'm not as bothered by it personally. That team is bringing in so many people to college football, though. They are. See, again, I don't watch college football like that, but I've had my eyes on this Colorado team. They're fun. They're interesting. It's a breath of fresh air. I kind of like it. I love Prime. I love Colorado. However, it's a bit interesting. I was a bit shocked to wake up this morning to see the game went into double OT. I thought CU was going to win by a lot based on early predictions. Me too. I was surprised it was a close game. I think most people expected them to just kind of roll through them. CU got off to a really good start this season, but I think Oregon and USC the next 2 weeks, maybe not in that order, or at least their next two games. That USC game I might actually watch. That might be appointment television. Caleb Williams versus Coach Prime. That's going to be awesome. That was probably my Grant take of the year. All right, we're going to jump in now. We've got 7 people in here. We had 10 a little bit earlier. We've got some people coming in here. As always, I've got my coffee with chocolate milk. Some might call it a mocha, but I call it coffee with chocolate milk. And we're going to get started. And we're going to start off with a bit of a weird one. But for the Buccaneers employee in the chat, you know what? If you work for an NFL team and you're in my stream, you get special treatment. So, Bears, Buccaneers. Here we go. So we have the Chicago Bears team who had, I don't want to say a lot riding on their first game against the Packers because it is one game. But man, there is high expectations in Chicago for this team. This is a team that has kind of been at the bottom for a while now. They haven't really been a big threat in a few years. Justin Fields looked exciting last year. You wonder what you have. They made a lot of moves in the offseason. and they're going up against their bitter rival, the Green Bay Packers, who finally don't have Aaron Rodgers. Finally, they're free from that man owning them. It's in Chicago. Christian Watson is out for the Packers, so they're without their top wide receiver too, and Green Bay wallops them. This game was an even bigger blowout than this final score indicates. The Bears were really not in this game for most of it. Green Bay really pulled away like after the second half. I mean, it is a demoralizing loss for the Bears. So I'm curious to see how they bounce back, because there were just a lot a lot has been made about Chase Claypool and his effort. A lot has been made about Justin Fields' performance. I talked about the QB School, their YouTube channel, on Thursday. Go watch that video on Justin Fields that they made. It's pretty entertaining and it's pretty informative. It's pretty well made, and the thumbnail from it seems to be a meme on NFL Twitter. So the Bears are coming in a little wounded. This is a wounded Bears team. How will they respond? This is a winnable game. Obviously, the Bucs won last week against my precious Vikings. The defense for Tampa Bay played really well. I mean, they held Minnesota to 17 points. Yeah, Minnesota got a lot of yards on them, but they made big plays when they needed to, and Baker Mayfield actually looked decent in the second half. The first half, he looked terrible. Like, there was just no way around it. He couldn't, sit still in the pocket. He just looked frazzled. He was making bad throws. I mean, first half, it looked truly awful, and it's like, why is he even out there? Like, get Kyle Trask in there. Like, seriously, he cannot be worse than this. But the second half, he's kind of calmed down a little bit, and you look at his final stats, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You live with that in a 20-17 game. So the Buccaneers played about as well as I thought that they could, and that was my upset pick last week. Hey, no big deal. And they come out with a win. They're now 1-0, and in an NFC South division that is still kind of open, and we'll talk more about it later with this game, but they're right there. So I guess that's my roundabout way of trying to finally dive into this game. I'm going to go with the Bucs at home. I think Tampa starts 2-0, which is crazy to say, and the Bears start 0-2. I just have never really been that moved by this Bears team, to be honest. I really haven't, and man, I don't know. Their defense just did not look very good still. Their defense was bad last year, and then they bring in 2 linebackers, and it's like, okay, that's nice. Like, Edmonds and Edwards are nice, but is that really going to fix your problems? You still don't have a pass rush. The secondary is still inconsistent, and Green Bay just kind of had their way with them. And then on offense, Fields is so confusing because he can have drives where he looks amazing and it's so exciting, and he can run the ball really well. He can buy time, but he's just not there as a passer. And I hate saying that, right? Because there's always this stereotype about mobile QBs can't throw. And for the most part, I feel like that's not true. Like, most mobile quarterbacks are good passers today. Guys like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, they are just good quarterbacks. I just don't know if Justin Fields is, though. Like, Justin Fields is what, Lamar and Jalen Hurts haters think that they are. There is a big gap between, a Jalen Hurts and a Justin Fields. And I don't know. You don't want to call him a bust yet because it's still early. But, man, he needs to have a decent game here today, I think. Otherwise, I don't know. Chicago might be picking fairly high in the draft again. That's what I'm going to say. So I'm going to go Tampa. I'll go Tampa 24. I'll go Tampa 24-18. It's kind of a weird score, but I think this will be a bit of a lower scoring game. The Bears do like to run the ball, so they might hold on to the ball for a little bit. Tampa tried to run the ball to their credit. Like I said, Rachaad White, 17 carries. Didn't really work out, but I like how they are at least committed to the run. And they got a few big plays from their wide receivers. Evans with the touchdown. Godwin with that sick catch on 3rd down to win the game. Tampa will do enough to win this game, I feel like, especially at home. They're 2.5-point favorites. I'm rocking with the Bucs here over the Bears. Tampa starting 2-0. It's crazy. Jack says, who should start at Bama, or who should start for Bama at QB? Well, I didn't see the final score of the Bama game, but it was not looking pretty for a while. Granted, it was also in a monsoon. But man, I don't know why they don't just go back to the first guy. At least he gives you upside with his mobility. I don't know. They're in an interesting spot at QB right now. Bama's another team. These don't have maybe quite the same pop that they've had before. And it's Bama. Like, I'm sure they'll figure things out, but they're not a juggernaut anymore. At least not this year. All right, next game. Henry says Fields has been in the league long enough. Sorry, hold on. This guy is talking about how Ford Field is the Coors Field in the National Football League. Anyways, Gabe says, I'm about to ride the pirate ship. Henry says, Fields has been in the league long enough to not be making some of the mistakes he does. He's not a rookie anymore. I agree. I mean, this is what, year 3 for him now? This is the year for him. If he does not improve, probably even a decent amount from what he showed last year, the Bears got to move on. It's harsh, and you want to give your guys time, but, especially if they're going to be picking high in a pretty good-looking QB class, he needs to turn it up a little bit. What he's shown right now through his first 2 years in 1 game has not been enough to show that he should get a second contract from the Bears. And it's a continuing trend of Ohio State quarterbacks just not doing that well in the NFL. We'll talk about Stroud in a little bit. I watched this game a little bit. I saw it on Red Zone. I didn't go back and watch like the all 22 of this game. Unfortunately, I don't have quite enough time to be doing that for every game, so I usually just pick a few games to go back and watch. But we'll talk about Stroud in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Seahawks-Lions, a playoff rematch from 2016. This matchup has had some juice. We also talked about the fumble touchback. That was also 2016, I believe, on Monday Night Football. But the Lions, home opener with the blue ski masks, and they're 4.5-point favorites against the Seahawks. So, the Seahawks disappointed last week. They lost to a Rams team that a lot of people, myself included, thought might be really bad. And we'll talk more about the Rams later, because the Rams they're a team that I'm going to closely watch here now over these next few weeks, because I want to see how much of this is real. But, man, Seattle's offense just did not have it going. To me, that was more concerning than the Rams putting up 30. The Rams putting up 30, you watch the game, it's like, okay, Matthew Stafford played insane. Like, Sean McVay is just that guy when it comes to, like, being a head coach, scheming up an offense, calling plays. You can live with that. But they scored 13 points against a Rams defense that's trotting out like rust yeast. I mean, this Rams defense on paper should probably be one of the worst units in the league. And you're at home, and I like the word thump. They got thumped. Geno Smith did not look that great. Some people saw a regression coming for him. It's possible. I mean, again, it's 1 game, but Seattle was one of the bigger disappointments of week 1. And so now they have to go and turn around from a tough loss like that, a divisional loss, mind you, which might really matter at the end when it's all said and done, if Seattle can turn this around a little bit. And they're playing this Lions team who pretty much gets like a quasi-bye week. They get a few extra days of rest after playing on Thursday. And they're at home. And Ford Field is going to be rocking. They've got the ski masks. This is a hungry team that thinks that they're just ready to be a legit, like, top-tier team in the NFL. I'm going to pick the Lions at home. I talked a lot about the Lions last week, talking about their Chiefs game and how it doesn't really change how I feel about the Lions. I still see them as, like, a 10, maybe 11-win team, division winner. Maybe not too much else outside of that. But this is a playoff team. This really looks like a playoff team. And especially just seeing how lifeless the Seahawks looked last week. I mean, again, I could like look like a fool. Like Seattle could just come out and like maybe Geno turns it around and their wide receivers make plays. But man, I mean, the Seahawks, they're a team that doesn't really have that much of a pass rush. The passing game struggled. The offensive line was getting battered around a little bit. And this is a Lions team with a much improved defense. I'm going to go the Lions. I'll go Lions 28, Seahawks 23. I'm going with some weird scores right now, but I don't know. I don't really keep track of the scores. I keep track of who I picked. I'll have to go back and see how I did last week. It was not that good, to be honest, but I don't know. I'm curious to see if this Lions defense can play really well again. If this Lions defense can hold the Seahawks to like 20-ish points, then you really start to think like, man, this defense is much improved. Because these two teams played last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't need to type Detroit. Lions versus Seahawks 2022. And it was a very high-scoring game, yeah. And it was not quite as close as that final score would indicate, if I'm not mistaken. Like the Lions had a good comeback at the end, but I mean, Seattle hung up 48 on them last year. Clearly, you don't want that to happen again if you're the Lions. If they can cut that in half, if the Lions can hold the Seahawks to 24, I think that's enough for them to win this game. That should be their goal. If their defense can be twice as good as last year, and with the improvements they made, it's possible. There are a lot of players making good plays for the Lions defense against the Chiefs. And yeah, the Chiefs are shorthanded, but you're doing it against the best quarterback in the world. So I'll go Lions. I want to see how this defense does. And for the Seahawks, I want to see if Geno Smith can respond. I think Henry does too, because he has both Tyler Lockett and JSN on his fantasy team, but I'm worried to start either. Well, who else do you have? I'm curious. What are the options on your bench, perhaps? Could you get a little creative? Because I am with you. It's a little anxious starting one of those guys, especially for how deep the receiver room is. You really don't know who's going to get the targets. And with how Geno looked last week, I mean, you wonder if maybe the other shoe drops a little bit with him. I don't know. So I'm curious. What other options do you have? Maybe there's someone else. If you want to like try and swing for the fences, you put them in instead. But I'm curious. I see, though. I mean, it's tough to know who's going to get the ball, and DK is there too, so we'll see. But I'm curious to see how that Lions defense plays. And I guess I didn't highlight things to watch for in this Bears-Bucks game. I'll be pretty quick with that. But for the Bears, I mean, can Justin Fields just be a little bit better than last week? I don't want to focus on the quarterbacks too much, but I will be highlighting a lot of the quarterbacks in this week's matchups. But can Justin Fields just be a little bit better? And for the Buccaneers, something I'm watching for Tampa. Are they going to continue to stick with the run game? Because, again, they were stubborn with it. They ran the ball a lot last week. It wasn't super effective. Can they stick with it, or are they going to start to abandon it, go back to what they did last year, kind of what the Vikings are doing this year where they just throw it every play? I don't think so with their new offensive coordinator, but we'll see. So Henry says, right now, I'm starting Joshua Kelly in my flex. The other option is Amari Cooper, but he's questionable for Monday's game. Yeah, those Monday injuries are scary, man, because you have to go a whole day without knowing if he's going to play or not. And then if he doesn't play, you pretty much have to pick up someone from like the waivers to go in his spot. And I don't even know how the waivers work. So you might not even be able to pick anyone up for him. Oh, I do like the Joshua Kelly start. The Chargers were running the ball very well, which surprised me, and Eckler's out. I would stay away from Amari Cooper, as nice as it might be to start him. He is a good wide receiver, but I would probably steer clear of that. Other option is Amari Cooper. So I guess Amari Cooper, JSN, or Tyler Lockett. I would probably go Lockett. I guess I don't know the score of your game. Like if you're losing, even then, I would go Lockett. He just seems to be a little bit safer of a play. I don't know. JSN, this is his second NFL game ever. And Lockett played with Geno last year. I'd go Lockett out of that situation. But that's a tough spot to be in. That stinks. All right, Henry, get ready. We're about to talk about the Falcons. Here we go. I will be watching this game today. This game is going to be on the big screen. I'm actually like really excited for this game beyond just like watching the Falcons. This is the Outside Zone Bowl. I'm going to take a swig of coffee and then I'll say what I mean about that. But that's another little teaser for my next video. I have been doing a lot of research on these two teams recently, especially with how they run their offense. It's pretty fascinating. This is a fun matchup right here. Both these teams, I think their goal is to make the playoffs, especially in the NFC where it's a little bit more open. Packers with that big win. We just talked about it. Jordan Love looked pretty good. I think some of it you have to credit to just Matt LaFleur being a great play caller and giving Love some favorable looks. But Love did his thing. If Jordan Love can play like this fairly consistently, this Packers team might make the playoffs. He doesn't need to be a superstar quarterback. He just can't, just don't turn the ball over. Make plays when you need to. Trust the running game. Which you could also say about this quarterback, who I maybe have a little bit less faith in doing that. But we'll see. We'll see. Hey, this game we'll see a lot. But yeah, all right, the outside zone bowl. So these two teams run outside zone runs more than pretty much any team in the NFL. I did some research on this yesterday. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons ran 371 outside zone runs. That is 103 more than the second place team, the 49ers. And the Packers were third with outside zone running attempts. Both these coaches come from that Shanahan coaching tree where they love outside zone run, pre-snap motion, all that fun stuff. The stuff that usually people associate with the 49ers, these guys do it just as much. And these guys also worked together. Arthur Smith was an assistant under Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur was the offensive coordinator with the Titans, and Arthur Smith was his tight ends coach. And then when LaFleur went to the Packers, Arthur Smith got promoted to OC. So there's these two guys know each other. They're probably friends. I mean, all the Shanahan guys are best buds with each other. They probably have a group chat or something, which I'd love to be a part of. But we're just if you're watching this game, keep track of how many times the announcers talk about outside zone or outside zone runs, pre-snap motion, stuff like that today, because both of these teams do it at a very high rate. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I am excited to watch this Atlanta Falcons running game again. Last week I said the thing I was watching for was I was excited for Bijan Robinson to play football. And he did. He had a good game. He didn't get as many carries, which I don't blame them for, because Algier is a pretty good back too, and you don't want Bijan piling up 300 carries his rookie season, then he's out of commission by 2 years from now. I also just want to see how Ritter does. To Ritter's credit, I'm a little mean to Desmond Ritter sometimes. He did not turn the ball over, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, no interceptions. Obviously, there's no fireworks in the passing game, but 24 points was enough to win this game. And also, if you guys watched my stream last week, someone made a score prediction that the Falcons were going to win. I believe it was 21-10. And I was like, whoa, 21-10. I was like, if this Falcons defense ever holds a team to 10 points, then maybe I'll start to believe in the Falcons. Well, look at this number right here. They did it. Week 1, they did it. That was probably the most impressive part about this Falcons victory last week. Their defense played really well. They got turnovers. Jesse Bates looked great. They held the Panthers to 10 points. They did it. So, Henry and any other Falcons fans that might be in here, you know what? I'm putting my feet on the Falcons bandwagon a little bit. I'm starting to believe that this could be a division-winning team, as Christine pumps her fist. I see the vision. They had a great fourth quarter. They ran the ball extremely well. I would like to see maybe the receivers get a little bit more involved in the passing game. Kyle Pitts was their leading receiver with 2 catches for 44 yards. Drake London, I don't even think he had a catch. Arthur Smith always likes to cross his arms well, we're not playing fantasy football. No, but if you're going to be spending so many top 10 picks on skill position players, ideally you'd use them. However, they won, so you can't even criticize that much. How will this Falcons defense look against probably a little bit tougher of a test too? I'm curious to see how they hold up. For the Packers, again, they came off a big win, and they go into Atlanta now. Back-to-back road games to start things off for the Packers. I am going to pick Green Bay, which, again, I know, Eric, how can you talk up the Falcons and say you're finally on the bandwagon and then not pick them? I just think the Packers are a much better team than the Panthers. The Panthers broke my heart last week, man. They had their chance. They had their shot week 1 to get a big road win, divisional win, and they couldn't. And Henry, you might be right that Panthers defense, that Panthers take might be aging pretty poorly. But I give the Packers the advantage at quarterback. Offensive line is... I won't say offensive line is even. I'll give the edge in the trenches to the Falcons, at least offensively. This Packers defense is still a lot better than the Falcons, in my opinion. And the fact that Ritter struggled against a pretty good Panthers defense, I could see a similar stat line from Ritter here today. I think it's possible. Will they use Bijan more in this game? I'm curious. I don't know. They might have to. I'll go Packers. I'll go Packers 27, Falcons 23. It'll be a close game. Like, I don't think that like the Packers are going to blow them out or anything. I think these two teams are fairly even. I just trust the Packers coaching staff a little bit more. I trust their quarterback a little bit more, and I trust their defense a little bit more. And I believe Christian Watson is back too. He's questionable, so we'll see. Aaron Jones is questionable too. Interesting. I did not know that. Pretty clean bill of health here for the Falcons. Let's see what Henry says. I do worry about our defense only succeeded so much because of Young turning the ball over. We can't rely on that every week. Yeah, turnovers are, I don't want to say fluky because some of it was just good play by the Falcons to force those turnovers. Some of it was bad play by the Panthers receivers too. You can't even put all of it on Bryce Young. That was a game I went back and watched a little bit of. I thought Bryce Young did fine. There's obviously stuff he needs to work on and clean up a little bit, but it was his first ever NFL game. Henry says both Watson and Jones are out. Okay, so that changes things a little bit. The Packers did a pretty good job working around not having Watson last week. I do think this Falcons defense might be better than the Bears defense, though, which is crazy to say. We'll see. Jack says Ritter needs to get London more involved. He does. I mean, Drake London's a good receiver. He is. I really liked what I saw from Drake London last year. I'm curious if Jair Alexander is going to be on Drake London much. I don't know how much shadowing the Packers do with their corners to their receivers. That might be a fun matchup if he does. I will be watching that pretty closely. But if you're the Falcons, if Ritter can play a little bit better and your defense can maybe get a few more stops that don't involve like turnovers, if they... It is going to be close. I'm going to give the slight edge to the Packers. This team is well coached. I think they're just a little bit better. And this is not disrespect to the Falcons. I am starting to buy the notion that the Falcons might be a playoff team and win this division. So it is going to be close. It is in Atlanta. They're 3-point favorites. I'm going to give the Packers a slight edge, though. We'll see. We'll see. This will be a good game. And watch those outside zone runs, man. When they work, it's beautiful. All right, Raiders-Bills next game. This is one of those games I was talking about where, like, it's not a juicy matchup, but we're going to learn a lot about these teams. So this is the home opener for the Bills, coming off a devastating loss to the Jets. Josh Allen was just so frustrating to watch in that game. The 3 interceptions were all bad. He was just making dumb decisions with the football, and I get that it's a part of the Josh Allen experience, and he has those stinkers, but man, oh man, oh man. He is too old to be doing that stuff now. It is so frustrating. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to, like, build up too much suspense. I think in a perfect world, the Bills blow the Raiders out this week. This is one of those bounce-back games where the Bills need to really come out and, like, put the pedal to the metal. If you're the Bills, I think your goal should be to, like, win by 3 possessions. You do not want to leave any doubt. The Bills are just a better team than the Raiders. They need to show it. It's their home opener. This is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. You come off a crushing divisional loss, which, again, that might add up at the end. Not even just like a tiebreaker with the Jets, but divisional record is another tiebreaker if it's not head-to-head. I don't want to say this is a must-win game, but if the Bills lose this game, they fall to 0-2 at home against the Raiders, the sky is falling. The Bills proclaim the sky is not falling. Go out and show us. Show us that the sky is not falling. The defense played great for the Bills. I'm not too worried about their defense. The one thing that does concern me is, again, the Jets could kind of run the ball on them, and that was what I hoped that the Bills were going to clean up on defense. When they bring in Poona Ford and Taylor Rapp and they switch defensive coordinators, they put Sean McDermott in charge of calling the defense. I was hoping that we were going to see better performance against the run, and we just didn't see it. And it just, at some point you wonder, like, is that just what this team is? Now, that being said, the defense is not the biggest concern for this team. Well, I don't know. Maybe in the grand scheme of things it is, because you don't want to overreact too much. Because again, Josh Allen has these stinkers every year. Like, there will be games where he just does not look like an NFL quarterback, and then he usually turns around the next week and he like goes for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. This could be one of those games against a Raiders secondary that is not good. Jack says, Allen definitely not rookie of the year caliber anymore. Oh, Jack. My man Jack has some history with Josh Allen on Madden. That's a fun story. Josh Allen, what was it, like 28 interceptions, but he still won rookie of the year. Jack had my player on the Bills. This was back when we were in high school, and Allen was a rookie. And what, your wide receiver had like 25 touchdowns or something crazy like that, and Josh Allen still won rookie of the year over him. Good times, good times. Josh Allen, what a player. Offensively for the Bills, we did see a lot of the stuff that they talked about in the offseason. Sean McDermott kept saying, like, we're going to be running a lot of, like, 12 personnel, a lot of 2 tight end sets. And we saw it. We saw Kincaid and Knox out on the field a lot at the same time. But again, even with those 2 tight end sets, they were not running the ball very well. And it's just so frustrating to watch. I honestly think this team has tried to fix that problem, but it just wasn't happening. I mean, look at this. 22 carries, 97 yards. Honestly, that's not terrible. But, man, I mean, James Cook, 12 for 46. I'm sorry, James Cook, you were incredible in college. Like, you had a great run with UGA. You got us a natty, right? Electric runner. He's just not that guy at the NFL level, at least from what I've seen so far. I don't know. I saw James Cook going pretty high in fantasy drafts, and it's like, man, like, I don't know. I'm surprised Damian Harris got only 1 carry. Am I crazy to think that Damian Harris might be the best running back on this Bills team? I don't know. Maybe. But again, turnovers, especially in a game like this, an ugly game against a backup quarterback, you cannot do this. You cannot turn the ball over 3 times. You just, when your offense is not getting anything going against a super powered defense, you cannot turn the ball over like that. That being said, I do think the Bills will bounce back, but that's something I'm going to watch. Can Josh Allen take care of the football? Last season, before his injury, so like the first 6 weeks of the season, I believe, Josh Allen was probably playing the best football of his life. He was slinging it. He was taking the stuff underneath. He was still hitting those big plays. He was making plays with his legs. Like, go look at Josh Allen's stats. First, like, 6 weeks of last season. Best football of his life. The Bills looked incredible. If he could get back to that form, which is very much possible, this is still a team that could win the Super Bowl. I would like to see that team this week. The Bills gotta show up here. They're 7.5-point favorites. They gotta show up. For the Raiders. How about the Raiders picking up a win on the road in Denver week 1? Denver was like my, maybe playoff dark horse fun team, you know? The Raiders, they beat them. I am still extremely worried about this Raiders defense. I mean, they held the Broncos to 16 points, but it is the Broncos' first game under Sean Payton, and the wide receivers for the Broncos just don't look that great. Russ looked better, but he's no Josh Allen. I mean, he can't test a secondary like Josh can. But the Raiders with a big win. And I tell you what, man. The it factor struck again. Jimmy G had a good game. I don't know, man. Jimmy G played pretty well. His stats aren't flashy. His advanced numbers are pretty good. And he made some impressive plays on tape. He made some throws on the run. He had that awesome scramble to pick up the first down with the game on the line. At some point, we just have to look at Jimmy Garoppolo and be like, you know what? It's probably not a coincidence that he has an insane winning percentage. I know wins aren't a QB stat, but, I mean, seriously, what is his record as a starter? This is now the 3rd team he's doing this with. He is 53-21. At some point, you just have to look at that and say it's not a coincidence. Jimmy G will not lose games for you. That is the big thing. He does not make those silly mistakes and bad turnovers. He definitely doesn't have the upside of some of those greater quarterbacks. He might not be able to like put you on his shoulders and win you a game. But he's back in a scheme that he's familiar with. He played some great football with Josh McDaniels when he was with the Patriots, and he had to play for Brady when he was suspended. The Raiders will be an interesting team, at least. I still just don't really buy their defense. The offense looked all right. 17 points obviously isn't ideal. Jacoby Myers had a great game. That being said, I don't know. I've talked up the Raiders a little bit now. They will probably get blown out. I'm going to go Bills 35, Raiders 20. That's the result that the Bills really need to get, in my opinion. Oh, we got some more activity here in the chat. Welcome back to the stream, Ted. How you doing? At work today and couldn't miss this, so I joined. I won't contribute to the chat so much today, though. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well, too, man. Hey, cheers to you, Ted. Let's have a great Sunday. Hey, sorry about the Bears and Packers not tying last week. How about a win for your Jaguars, though? Sorry about the Steelers. They'll have a chance to bounce back this week, though. But, hey, how about those Jags, huh? We'll talk about the Jags in a little bit. Henry says, I bought into the James Cook hype. I think he could still have a good season. The Jets' defense is very good, so I don't think you can condemn them too much after week 1. That is a fair point. Cook was fine last season, too. I mean, I'm not saying like his career is over, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm not as high on James Cook as some people, though, I don't think. But yeah, Bills 35, Raiders 20. And if you're the Bills, you need a game like this. I mean, a win is a win. If you come out there with like an ugly, like 23-20 win, you take the win and you move on to next week. But man, you just really want to make a statement here. Let's go to another good game. Ravens-Bengals. Here we go. Now we're talking. Divisional game, huge implications. Two teams that believe that they can like maybe make a Super Bowl run even. The Bengals with their backs against the wall. The Ravens with a pretty ugly win in their own right, week 1. Henry says the it factor. Oh, yeah. All-time Georgia friend group moment. The it factor. Unfortunate. That's the one time that Jimmy ever lost a team the game after a beautiful speech about, maybe Jimmy G is pretty good. And then he throws a killer interception and everyone erupts into laughter. Caden says, I heart Ted. Me too. This whole channel loves you, Ted. You're a legend on this space of YouTube. I'm with you on Cook, Henry. And Jack Othberg says, my boy Pickett needs a bounce back performance. He does. We'll get to the Steelers. Don't worry. We will get to your boy Kenny Pickett. You can't even put all of that on him, though. If you want to talk about a good defense, the 49ers. Oh, man. All right. The 49ers might just be that good, period. We'll see. Ravens-Bengals. This Bengals team got battered last week. You want to talk about a team that came off a tough loss? Oh, man. The Browns had their way. Henry, shout out you for hyping up the Browns a little bit. Whew, that defense looks good. Oh, they were having their way. I mean, they just seem to own the Bengals, which is kind of weird. But man, oh man, oh man. They showed up in a big spot. We talked last week about, like, is there going to be a team that doesn't score a touchdown? Who thought it'd be the Cincinnati Bengals that wouldn't score a touchdown? Isn't that something? 3 points for the Bengals. And now they get to turn around and play the Ravens, a team who kind of looked a little out of sync against the Texans. I kind of talked about that last week. Houston's defense isn't that bad. 25-9 was the final score. But it was a little bit closer than that indicates. I mean, it was a 1-point game at halftime. Devastating that J.K. Dobbins is hurt again. It's just so unfair. It really stinks. I feel so bad for him. He's such a talented running back. Man, it just, it's like Marcus Lattimore. I mean, I don't know. It stinks, man. It really does. Credit Justice Hill. He played pretty well filling in for him. He had 2 touchdowns, I guess. He got them points that they needed. This passing offense did not look as good as advertised, though. I put some money on Lamar Jackson to go over 216.5 yards. I thought, man, like, of course, right? They're going to throw the ball all over the yard. 22 pass attempts, 169 yards, and an interception. Not Lamar's best work. And And again, first game in a new offense. They're also without Mark Andrews, who is still definitely their best pass catcher. I believe Andrews is questionable for this game, if I'm not mistaken. But the Ravens have a lot of things to iron out offensively, especially through the air, and now they're without their starting running back again. It stinks, man. I feel so bad for J.K. Dobbins. This game is big because I still think at the end of the day, as good as the Browns looked, these two teams are still the two best teams in the AFC North. Cincinnati's back at home now. It's hard for me to pick against the Bengals in a big spot like this. It's hard to imagine the Bengals starting 0-2. You have to think that they're just a better team than what we saw last week. Also, important to note, this Ravens team, outside of Dobbins, pretty banged up. Marlon Humphrey is out. That's a big deal. Jamar Chase historically has torched the Ravens, and they're without their best corner, and they're clear, he's their clear number one guy. Rock Ya-Sin's not bad, but you don't want Rock Ya-Sin on Jamar Chase whatsoever. Ronnie Stanley is out. Tyler Linderbaum is out. Mark Andrews might not play. That is a bad injury report for the Ravens. They're banged up. They're on the road. They're still learning this new offense. I'm going to go with the Bengals. The Bengals bounce back and get a nice win. They're not going to blow out the Ravens, but it's going to be one of those wins where Cincinnati can just breathe a sigh of relief a little bit. It's like, okay, they had a bad game. They got off to a slow start last year too. I believe they lost to the Steelers week 1 last year. This is the game where you just kind of, okay, Joe Burrow is still good. He's not phoning it in after he got his big contract. That was a take that I saw a little bit too much of last week. It's like, okay, it's one game. The Bengals bounce back. They'll get an honest-to-goodness 28-20 victory over the Ravens. But it's a game that they control mostly. Bengals bounce back. I will be watching to see if this offense can just get back on track. They had nothing going. Their offensive line was humiliated. But the Ravens don't have as good of a pass rush, not nearly as good of a pass rush as the Browns did. So Burrow should have some more clean pockets. Jamar Chase should get a lot of favorable matchups. Maybe get T. Higgins involved some too. He kind of disappeared a little bit. For the Ravens, again, I'm going to be watching this offense. Can they get it going? They promised that they were going to throw the ball all around the yard. Now they're without their starting running back. They're very shorthanded. Can they get their offense going a little bit? This is a more offensive team than some people might think, with a very talented and good defense, but just a little banged up right now. They kind of need to score some points in this game. They're on the road. Bengals 28-20. That's my pick here. Jack says Andrews is in. Thank goodness, because he is on too many of my fantasy teams to be out. That helps. That helps. I still am going to go with the Bengals, though, but that helps. That might make this game a little bit more entertaining. That's good. I would like to see Mark Andrews have a good game today, not even just for fantasy purposes, but that helps. Henry says, as much as the Browns dominated, I still didn't think Watson looked that amazing. Interested to see how he looks against the Steelers. Yeah, Watson did not look good. And to be a little bit fair to both offenses, not even exclusively to the Browns, but also to the Bengals, it was raining pretty hard in that game too. One of the podcasts I listened to, the Stay Hot podcast, one of the guys was at the game. He's a Browns fan. And he said, like watching it on TV did not do it justice as to how ugly the weather was. So some of that, you have to factor in some of that too. Deshaun Watson did not look good though, which I don't know. What goes around comes around, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, he's a guy that you think maybe if he looks pretty good, this Browns team is super dangerous. It would be kind of ironic and maybe a little poetic if Deshaun Watson was the thing that held this Browns team back. We'll see. I don't know. Let's go to Chargers-Titans. We already talked about Seahawks-Lions for those that might be joining late. I do have the Lions winning this game. Let's go to Chargers-Titans. A very weird game. This is the classic 1 o'clock CBS game. Chargers coming off a loss against the Dolphins. You want to talk about an awesome game. That game was awesome. I'll go more in depth when we cover the Dolphins-Patriots Sunday night game. This is a game I for sure went back and watched the all 22 of. Oh, baby. This was some good football on both sides. I got to give the Chargers some credit. They ran the ball. This is a team that has struggled with stopping the run and running the ball. And you know what? They went out there. Everyone is expecting them with Kellen Moore to just chuck it downfield. Like, oh, so many deep shots with Justin Herbert. And you know what they did? They ran for like over 200 yards. Austin Eckler had a great game. He's out. Joshua Kelly also had a great game. Pat McAfee is being very loud on my screen right now. Sorry if you guys could hear that. Man, that defense let them down, though. That secondary is rough. I mean, look at that. Look, 233 yards on 40 carries. Eckler and Kelly both went crazy. Eckler's out, so Kelly is going to have to do more. That hurts a little bit. Eckler is a very important piece of this team. And I've been an Austin Eckler defender for a while. You have the Austin Eckler defenders, and then you have the Austin Eckler hecklers. And I have always stood with Austin Eckler. There's been this weird narrative around him, especially if you go deeper into football Twitter. I don't know. Some people just like to say, oh, Austin Eckler's not that good. People like him because of fantasy. And they think they sound really smart when they say that. But again, it's maybe not a coincidence that he has scored more touchdowns than anyone else over the past 2 seasons. And he looked pretty good as a runner last week. He's not an elite runner, right? Like, he's not Nick Chubb. But he's a great receiver. And he's important for this team because he is that underneath option on a passing game that has a lot of, like, deep threats. Mike Williams, they draft Quentin Johnston. Like, those 2 guys are the kind of guys that you just, like, throw it deep downfield. You hope they can win on those deep routes. They're big guys. Go up, get the jump ball. It really comes down to Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler to be those underneath options. I really think they are going to miss Austin Eckler in this game against the Titans because he is just, like, that security blanket for Herbert to dump off to when the deep stuff down the field is not there. And, you know, Keenan Allen is still a pretty good receiver. He had a pretty good game, but he is starting to get older. This is not the Keenan Allen of, like, 2018. Eckler not playing is a big deal. He is an extremely important piece of this offense. He's not underrated. Like, I think if you called Austin Eckler, like, the 9th or 8th best back in the league, that's fair. But I've just seen some wild takes about Austin Eckler, like, man, he's not even top 25. It's like, yes, he is. Come on. Yes, he is. He's a good football player. He's also pretty good in pass protection, too, which they also might miss some. Like, third down, he's out there usually, either blocking or receiving. Welcome back, Anything for Clicks. Good to see you back in here. Happy Sunday. Getting ready for some more football. We're talking Chargers-Titans right now. Look at that. We got the regulars back here. Ted is back in here. Hope work is going well for you. Anything for Clicks is back. It's Sunday, man. Best day of the week. I was just talking about how important Austin Eckler is to this Chargers offense. Now, is he important enough where the Chargers might not win this game because of him? Anything for Click says Tennessee's a tough out. Wouldn't be surprised if they win. They played an interesting game last week. This was one of the games I didn't watch too much of. 16-15 final score. But from what I did see, and just looking at the matchup later, the defense came to play. And this, you were right. I mean, this Tennessee defense will make them a tough out. The offense in general was not really there. The running game wasn't the greatest. But as long as you have Derrick Henry back there, like, Derrick Henry doesn't look washed. He's maybe not the back he once was. He's going to get his 1,000 yards, though. Also, I did not mean to open up the Saints there. I meant to just look at this game. But Tannehill, oh boy. Tannehill had a rough game. 3 turnovers. Again, when you're a team like the Titans, where you're built to try and win these uglier games, you cannot be turning the ball over like this. And I like Tannehill. I think he's had a very underrated career. He can't be playing games like this, though, if the Titans want to win. I mean, this is going to sound mean, but he is a big reason why the Titans lost this game. They are 0-1 because of those 3 turnovers. You just can't be doing that. They could have won this game, honestly. Now, can they pull off a slight upset against the Chargers? You know, when I did my season predictions, like before the season started and I picked every game, I actually picked the Titans to win this game because I was worried about the Chargers' run defense. And this is one of those weird games where, like, you look at the Titans at the end of the year and they might have like 7 or 8 wins, and you're like, how the heck did they get that many wins? It's because they like pull wins out of nowhere in games like this. It's in Nashville. Chargers are 2.5-point road favorites. I think I am going to go with the Titans. This is going to be a maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I could totally see the Chargers just winning this game. Herbert did play pretty well. His average depth of target was still pretty low, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there just wasn't as many deep shots down the field, and some of that is just how defenses play. When you're playing against a Fangio defense, Vic Fangio, Dolphins defensive coordinator, he likes those 2 high safety looks to try and take away the big plays. So a lot of it is that. But at some point, like, maybe that is just kind of how Justin Herbert plays, and that's okay. Like, as long as he takes the shots when they're there, you don't want to be Josh Allen where you're just arm punting it every time, just chucking it down the field for no reason. Herbert played a clean game. Herbert is not the reason the Chargers lost, I will tell you that much. It's not on him. There's always like the meme, like, oh, it's never Justin Herbert's fault. But in this case, it was not his fault. I am going to go the Titans in a bit of a rock fight. I'll go Titans 23, Chargers 20. They might win like on a game-winning field goal or something. I could see Derrick Henry having a pretty good game on the ground against this Chargers defense that just did not look good. The secondary is weak, so maybe that helps the Titans passing game a little bit. Tannehill maybe plays average. If they can get a clean game out of Tannehill and get Derrick Henry going, I think the Titans could walk out with one of those wins that they get. Pressure got to Herbert a little bit too, especially late in the fourth quarter. The Dolphins pass rush just kind of took over. Shout out Jalen Phillips, my defensive player of the year dark horse, having a heck of a game. I mean, this Titans defensive line is nasty. They've still got Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, Tyre Tart, Harold Landry is back. Like, this Titans defense is pretty good. I am going to go the Titans, 23-20. We'll go with the Titans here. That'll be one of the upsets. It's not that big of an upset. 2.5-point favorites. Henry says, Tennessee is one of the most underrated teams in the league coming into the year. Interested to see how Hopkins looked. Hopkins played all right last week. I mean, he had, 7 catches for 76 yards, something like that. He's certainly not the player he used to be. He can't separate as much anymore. He's not as great after the catch. But if it's like 3rd down and 7 and you need 8 yards, he's a good guy to go to still. He still has great hands. He'll win at the catch point. Don't expect too many 100-yard games from DeAndre Hopkins, but you could see a lot of stat lines like we saw last week. It's like those 7 for 70, something like that. Maybe a few touchdowns sprinkled in throughout the season. He's an important part of this Titans offense. We'll go Titans, though, 23-20, close one. We talked about Bears-Bucks. I have the Bucks winning this one. I think, 24-18, I think I had the final score. I'm just not that moved by the Bears. Tampa is a sneaky one. All right, here we go. Here's maybe the game of the week. And it's so funny because we are big Jaguars supporters on this channel. I have a Jaguars video. I love Trevor Lawrence. I love watching this Jags team. I really want the Jags to do well. And you see me rocking the Mahomes, and it's like, Eric, what the heck? Well, this is just a jersey that I had that I wanted to throw on today. I think it looks sick. I do love Patrick Mahomes. It's also his birthday today, so happy birthday, Patrick. And it's a big game for the Chiefs. The reinforcements are back. We'll say that. It's like the scene in Avengers Endgame where like everyone's coming through the portal to try and join the battle. The boys are back for KC. It did not take very long for them to convince Chris Jones to come back. Kelsey is healthy again. He's listed as questionable, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play if I'm not mistaken. The Chiefs might look a little bit more like the Chiefs this week. Jacksonville had an interesting game against the Colts where it seemed like they controlled it for most of the game. Well, no, that they didn't really. The Colts hung around for a little bit, then the Jaguars tried to pull away. The Colts made it close, and then the Jags pulled away at the end. I mean, they were clearly the better team in that game. Trevor Lawrence played awesome. He did have the pick, but This is another game where you go back and you look at some of the throws Trevor Lawrence made. Hoo-hoo! Oh, man. Hey, MVP. That's all I'm saying. It is unfair how the Jaguars got Calvin Ridley. I think the NFL might have made a big mistake letting Calvin Ridley go to the Jaguars and the Jaguars being able to give up as little as they did for him. Oh, man, this connection already looks sick. These two are going to be a problem all season long. Christian Kirk, who had a great year last year and is normally a big piece of this offense, had one catch. Look at that. He had one catch for 9 yards, and it just didn't matter. So even if Ridley wasn't as good as he was last week, he just gives them another option. I talked about this a lot in my video. This is a receiving core that didn't really have top-end talent. They had some good players. But it was mostly just Zay Jones and Christian Kirk getting the targets at wide receiver. Calvin Ridley is a massive upgrade over Marvin Jones. And all of a sudden, they put up 31. 31 usually wins you games. I am excited to watch this offense play football again today. This will be the other game I have on probably, if I can find a way. No offense to the Titans. I mean, the Titans, they're playing a big game themselves, but I would really much rather watch this over Titans-Chargers personally. So we'll see. Maybe I'll go to the eastern corners of the internet, if you know what I'm saying. Shout out to the guy who had the pirated stream on the Target demo iPad last night. That really cracked me up. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you might have seen that. Ask Christine. I could not stop talking about that for the rest of the time we were at Target. I just thought it was so funny. We were near the electronics section, and I can hear the broadcast of the Florida game on, and I'm like, well, that's weird. Usually they don't have live TV on here. And I'm looking, it's not on any of the TVs. And I go over to the demo iPad where you can play Fruit Ninja or whatever to just pass the time or test it out. And someone had NFL Byte pulled up on the Target demo iPad. Hey, when the game is on, the game is on. I respect the hustle. I don't know. I just thought that was so funny. Anyways, a bit of a tangent there. More coffee, and then we'll really dive into this matchup. This is the game of the week, in my opinion. I wish this was the Sunday night game, but I can't complain about the Sunday night game that we got. Ooh. This is probably the matchup I'm second most excited for. This could be a coaching masterclass, but we'll get to that. It's 11:09 now. We're less than 2 hours away from football. I cannot wait. We're going to be up and ready. Making burgers today for football. I'm excited. Oh, all right. Let's do this. Jack says Kelsey is in, but still give the Jags the win. I agree, and we'll talk about why. So, and I say that this could easily be a game where the Chiefs go out and put up 40, and they give a nice little reminder that, hey, we are still the Kansas City Chiefs. We are to be respected and feared. That loss against the Lions was so frustrating if you're a Chiefs fan. The Chiefs should have won this game. Again, not disrespect to the Lions. The Lions earned this win fair and square. A road win against the Chiefs. But the Chiefs were the better team in this game. They were. Mahomes played a pretty good game. He played a lot better than his stats would indicate. He had no help from his receivers whatsoever. The Chiefs kind of did the bold strategy of, let's just not have good wide receivers and see if Mahomes and Andy Reid is enough. The problem is that strategy is also built on the idea that Travis Kelce will be out on the field and he is your wide receiver one, and they didn't have him, and they lost the game because of that. I mean, that is why they lost. Chiefs defense looked really good without Chris Jones, which surprised me. I gave Trent McDuffie some pop last week. He looks like a budding star. He looks like he could be a legit superstar. He is so unbelievably good. I'm still a little mad that the Vikings didn't draft him. I wanted the Vikings to take him. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, though. Man, he looks good. George Karlaftis looked improved. He was getting some pressure. I mean, if Chris Jones is back and he's up to full speed, that could be what wins the Chiefs this game, because the Jaguars' offensive line is not the greatest. And for the most part, it doesn't really matter because Trevor is just that good. He's good at avoiding pressure, getting the ball out quick. He doesn't really take too many hits or sacks, even though the Jags' offensive line just isn't that special. And that is the luxury of having a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. He is a difference maker in that regard. He elevates the offense around him. He really is that good, man. He really is. Having Travis Kelce back is the other big thing because this is a team that really missed Juju. That was the other thing. They lose Juju, and no one really talks about it, but Juju was an important piece of this offense last year. I mean, he was their top wide receiver. He's a good blocker. He could do a lot from the slot or out wide. I mean, the Chiefs really missed Juju. I think even if they had Juju, they probably beat the Lions. It's in Jacksonville. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. I'm going to give the Jags the win, though, in a high-scoring game. Again, preseason stream, I had the Jags winning this game. I'm not backing down. Yes, I'm rocking the Chiefs jersey. Maybe it's a reverse jinx. We're going with the Jaguars in the game of the week, though. Give me Jacksonville 35-31. Offensive fireworks will be delivered upon us. We're going to watch some high-level quarterback play. Might this be a playoff preview? We'll see. These two teams played in the playoffs last year, and you know what? It was a close game. The Jaguars kind of hung in there. You know? This was a close game. The Jaguars did not get embarrassed by the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Chiefs had them in the regular season on the ropes pretty well. Oh, man. ESPN's analytics is not loving the Jags. Give me the Jags, though. And also, might I add, last week I said I wanted to watch Trayvon Walker, see how he did. Right? Maybe he was improved. He showed improvement down the stretch last season. He actually had a pretty good game against the Chiefs, of all teams, in the playoffs. And I thought, you know what? He gets a nice test against the Colts offensive line that isn't that great and a rookie quarterback. And I tell you what, Trayvon Walker delivered. Trayvon Walker was awesome last week. He played really well. I said I'd like to see him maybe even get a sack. He got his sack. He also got a tackle for loss. And he's a guy, if you go back and you watch the tape, he was winning most of his reps. He was beating his man. He was causing pressure. I don't know how many pressures he got. Let's go look it up, actually. I think PFF might have the pressure numbers at this point. This is what I like PFF for. I don't really like their grades because I think they're subjective. But I like a lot of the more niche stats that you can get with a PFF subscription. So I don't know. It's worth it for me. I mean, I make content about the NFL. I like knowing this kind of stuff. I'm not going to pay too much attention to his grade and be like, oh, Trayvon Walker got this grade. Like, whatever. His overall defensive grade was, bad, I guess. How many pressures did he get? 4 pressures. That's an improvement from last year. Last year, he was averaging, around 2 pressures a game first half, and then 3. 4 pressures, a sack, 3 hurries, a tackle for loss. And again, just watching him play, he looks more comfortable as an edge rusher this year. He was beating his man. He looked really good. And didn't Josh Allen also get 3 sacks? Yeah. So I don't know. These two going up against the Kansas City offensive line that is not great at the tackle position. I mean, hey, a lot was made about Juwan Taylor and his stance and his jumping the snap. That could be another big difference. You know, I talk about Chris Jones maybe having his way with the Jags offensive line. Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen could very well have their way against these Chiefs tackles. The interior offensive line is awesome for the Chiefs. Their center and their 2 guards are great. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Joe Thuney. That's not the problem. The problem is the tackles. And again, when you have a quarterback like Mahomes, it doesn't matter that much. I could see Allen and Walker having another big game for the Jaguars. That could be the difference. I'm going Jacksonville at home, 35-31. Let's go, baby. Scott K, welcome to the stream. I don't know if I've seen you in here before, but welcome to the stream, man. Hope you're doing well. Happy Sunday. Thank you for calling out Juju. He was clutch last year, but doesn't get the attention he deserves. He's almost become underrated. It's so weird. He had those awesome years with the Steelers, and maybe a lot of it was just Antonio Brown taking away attention. Juju got a lot of favorable matchups, and he put up ridiculous stats. And then there was the whole stuff, all the TikTok dancing or whatever. I honestly didn't really care about that. He was just having fun. He's a good kid, you know. But no, Juju was good for the Chiefs last year. The Patriots didn't really use him that much last week, which I found kind of interesting. They're having Keyshawn Butte. I think that's how you say his name. I've heard his name pronounced 3 different ways, but they have him coming in. I would like to see Juju maybe used a little bit more by the Patriots tonight. He is a good player. Anything for Click says KC must win game. Yeah, you really don't want to start 0-2, especially with how good the AFC is. I mean, they should be fine in the scheme of the division. Like, they are still probably clearly the best team in the division. I don't really worry about that. But yeah, seeding implications. I mean, if they lose to the Jaguars get the head-to-head tiebreaker. The Jaguars also play in an easier division. If the Jaguars win this game, that could go a long way towards them maybe even getting the 1 seed. We'll see. Jaguars' first-round bye is maybe on the menu if they win this game. This is a big game. I wonder if Jim and Tony are doing this game. It's Mahomes, so probably. Tony loves him some Mahomes. You can't blame him, though. Anyways, we talked a lot about this game, but I don't care. This is the game right here. I'm very excited for this game. Colts-Texans next. Here we go. All right. Battle of the rookie quarterbacks. Anything for Click says, I don't know, Raiders might be okay. They might. They got a pretty good win. They have talent, especially on offense. I do worry about that secondary holding up in the grand scheme of things. I do have Buffalo beating Vegas comfortably today. And overall, KC just seems to have the Raiders number. I'm not too worried about like the Raiders swooping in and taking the division. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, crazy stuff happens, but I would put the odds pretty low on that. I think KC could like win 11 games, which would be a bad year for them, and that'd be enough to win the division. But yeah, that's a good game. We're going to go to Colts-Texans now, which no disrespect to either team, but probably not quite as exciting of a matchup. Houston is the 1-point favorite here. I do want to see Anthony Richardson again. We had all the highs and lows of the Anthony Richardson experience last week. He looked amazing as a runner. Shane Steichen continues to be him, designing up schemes for mobile quarterbacks. The Eagles seem to miss Shane Steichen a little bit. Their offense just does not look as good. Don't let the 34 points fool you. I don't know. I mean, the Eagles are still a good team, obviously, and they earned their win against the Vikings. They had their way with the Vikings. That is well established, but I do want to see how Anthony Richardson looks again. This is probably going to be a bit of a lower scoring game. I don't know. He had some nice runs, 10 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. He was up and down as a passer, which is to be expected. If you're the Colts, you don't need him to be like Drew Brees, dicing guys up. It's going to be a process. You're going to need to be patient with him. But he showed what he can do, and he showed that he's a good enough runner that the floor is kind of higher than you think because having a running quarterback just opens up so much for the offense. Stroud was okay for the Texans. He does not have much to work with, so you can't blame him that much. I mean, talked about it last week. Poor guy has to go from throwing to like the most insane wide receiver room ever to the Texans, who might have the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. You can't put it all on him. He struggled with pressure a little bit. I think there were a few times where he had pass rushers in his face and he got a little flustered. There were times where he ran around a little bit too much, which is ironic because that was kind of one of the things coming out of college is like, can he run enough? There were a few plays he just ran into the pressure, which I don't like. Now, it was his first NFL start, so you can't CJ Stroud's just a bust, it's over. And he played decent. He had a fairly clean game. I feel like he did what he could against a good Ravens defense with just not a lot around him on offense. You can't jump to too many conclusions with CJ Stroud. He looked fine. The Colts, will be a much more interesting matchup for Stroud because the Colts secondary just does not seem to be that good. They're very inexperienced. They're even more inexperienced than the Vikings secondary, which is really saying something. And there's just not a lot of talent in that secondary. I could see Stroud having a decent game. I could see 2 touchdowns, no picks for Stroud. I'm going to pick the Texans to win this game. It's in Houston. The defense came to play for the Texans. DeMeco Ryans. Man, I'm excited to see what DeMeco Ryans can do. What a cool hire. Former Texans linebacker, kicked butt with San Francisco as their defensive coordinator. Now he comes over here. He brings over some of his guys. They put a lot into this defense. Will Anderson had a fundamentally sound game. He wasn't jaw-dropping, but he showed up and he played well. He's He was a very polished player coming out of Alabama. He had a pretty good game. I'm going to go with the Texans. I think the Texans' defense is better than some people give them credit for. They could force maybe a few Richardson mistakes. Stroud could have a decent game against a weaker Colts secondary. Give me Houston. I'll go Houston. Houston 25, Indy 15. Another weird score. I don't know. 10-point win for the Texans. 10 points is maybe a bit much. I don't know, though. Give me the Texans at home. I like their defense. I like what they're building defensively. I would still like to see the Texans get some more weapons. And, man, not having a first-round pick is going to be tough. But we'll see. Stroud should have a decent game. Caden says, I'm so excited for Richardson. Me too. That's if Anthony Richardson is good, it is going to be so much fun. I don't know why people are rooting against Anthony Richardson. Don't you want him to be good? Like, football is more fun if Anthony Richardson turns out to be good. It's going to be a process. It'll take some time. But he's already shown that he's not awful, which is not bad. So you'll live with that. Even if he was awful year one, you live with that because it is a process. The Texans line is super banged up. I'm going Indy here. This is where, I get banged in a big spot here. I guess Titus Howard was hurt. I knew about that. Who else is banged up on the Texans line? Laramie Tunsil is not going to play. Interesting. Okay. That does change things a little bit. The Colts pass rush isn't amazing. It's definitely not bad. It's not like a liability. Is that enough to make me switch my pick? No, I'm going to stick with Houston. But good call, Henry. I actually did not know that. I did not know that Laramie Tunsil is likely out. They're already without Titus Howard. That's too bad because the Texans' offensive line, when they're healthy, is actually pretty good. That's one of the strengths on this team. It's a very underrated unit. Anything for Clicks says Houston rookie QB had a decent game. I had some insiders tell me he's going to be a very good QB. Oh, we got some sources in the stream. I love it. Some insider information. All right. Well, hey, if you get any more insider information, drop it in the chat. I love it. No, I mean, Stroud had an honest-to-goodness, decent first game. He didn't light the world on fire, but he did not lose the Texans the game. He'll get better. He'll get better. Stroud has a shoulder injury, too. All right, so tough sledding for Houston in the health department. We're going to stick our neck out a little bit. I love saying that on this channel. We're going to stick our neck out for the Texans. I guess it's not that bold of a pick. I mean, the desert has them as the favorites, so we'll have some desert talk here in a little bit. The people in the desert. Let's go to this game. This game is actually very interesting. This is a game I will be watching closely. This might be the 4 o'clock game that I have on. 49ers, Rams. You want to talk about a Shanahan Bowl? Here we go. These are two coaches that have worked with each other. Two coaches that know each other very, very well. Ooh, this is going to be, I think this could be a fun one. It's in LA. The Rams coming off a big win last week. How about the Rams, huh? The Rams with maybe the most impressive win on the week. Everyone writing them off, saying they're going to be in the Caleb Williams conversation. Stafford is shot. You know, his elbow injury is going to do him in. They've got Puka Nacua, out there. And they go up and they hang 30 on the Seahawks in Seattle. And I genuinely do not think I'm exaggerating when I say that this was one of the best games of Matthew Stafford's career. No touchdowns, but man, look at some of the throws he was making. And he's doing it with Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua. Stafford was slinging the rock. Matthew Stafford had one of the most impressive performances of week 1. I talked about this way back in like June when I did my quarterback rankings quiz where I tried to rank all the quarterbacks based off a quiz online. That was a pretty fun stream. But I said I was really worried about Stafford's elbow because elbow injuries for quarterbacks are really scary. And even when he played last year, he just did not look that great. And so I worried maybe Stafford is cooked. But I also said, give me 4 games of Matthew Stafford this year before I really jump to a conclusion. And if Stafford looks good, then it might just be Stafford is back. Oh, man, Stafford might be back. Again, it's 1 game. But seriously, go watch some of Stafford's throws in this game. He was unbelievable. And also, I think it's about time, for as much love as we give Kyle Shanahan, and rightfully so, like Kyle Shanahan, people speak in hushed tones about him. He is the wizard of offense. He is the prodigal son. He is the chosen one. And he is. Like, I'm not even saying that that's wrong. He absolutely is. He's probably one of the 3 best coaches in the NFL. He's one of those guys where as long as the team is relatively healthy, the offense is going to be good because he's that good of an offensive mind. We need to say the same thing about Sean McVay, though, because, oh my goodness, he is an actual wizard. How did this Rams team score 30 points on the road? Sean McVay deserves his credit. At what point do we talk about Sean McVay being a Hall of Fame coach? 2 trips to the Super Bowl, winning 1, and just completely reversing the fortunes of this Rams franchise that was directionless before he took over. The Rams were terrible. They were never good. They were never exciting. They had been mired in mediocrity since the greatest show on turf. And in comes Sean McVay, changing the culture. And, I kind of had some fun with this. Like there's a classic, coaching trope. Like the player trope, if a player is coming off maybe a bad year, maybe they're injured, and maybe they're like a vet, and it's like maybe they're starting to decline, but then the player comes back and they're in the best shape of their life. The coaching version of that is when maybe a team has a down year or something, but then the reports in camp are, oh, the coach is having fun again. And this offseason, a lot of Rams reporters were saying, watch out, Sean McVay is having fun again. Maybe he is. Maybe Sean McVay is just back. And he did the same thing with the Rams a few years ago. 2019, the Rams missed the playoffs coming off their Super Bowl loss. They lose in the Super Bowl. They score 3 points. And then the next year, that's when the other shoe drops with Jared Goff a little bit. And the Rams miss the playoffs. And people are looking at them with no draft capital or anything. And they're like, man, the Rams might stink for the next few years. It might be over for them. But then 2020, when everyone just kind of was down on the Rams and they're like, man, they might be one of the worst teams in the NFC, they go out and make the playoffs out of nowhere. And then the year later, they get Stafford and they win the Super Bowl. So maybe Sean McVay is really just a generational coach where he might have a bad year, but give him a year to turn things around and he will. We're going to learn a lot about this Rams team because the San Francisco 49ers are about as big of a test as you can get. And historically in this matchup, the 49ers and Shanahan kind of have the upper hand over McVay and the Rams. Outside of that NFC Championship game win for the 49ers for the Rams back when they went to the Super Bowl, Shanahan has kind of had McVay's number. And even then, that was a really close game that the Niners probably could have won. Anything for Click says Rams rookie wideout is a beast. I mean, how about Puka Nacua? I made a joke about him last week. It's they have something called Puka Nacua at wide receiver, and he goes out and he plays awesome. Maybe the Rams coaching staff and Stafford, maybe that is just enough for them to be a playoff contender. We're going to find out real quick, though, because they're going up against the 49ers team who you want to talk about as long as they are healthy and they have their coach, they're going to be good. As long as Kyle Shanahan is here, and they're relatively healthy, the 49ers are going to be a very good football team. I'd still, it's just, and Purdy, this is the elbow injury bowl, because Purdy had his elbow injury, and that scared the heck out of me. I thought, oh man, that's scary, maybe he needs Tommy John. This is a problem, maybe. Purdy came out slinging it. Purdy played pretty well. And and I'm really excited for my next video, which I'm going to start writing soon. I'm almost done with the research. I'm hoping maybe in a few weeks this video can be out because there's just a lot that I want to talk about with how teams like the Rams, the 49ers, and the Falcons even, and the Packers, how they run their offense. They set it up so that it doesn't matter as much who the quarterback is or even who the running back is. It is, I don't want to say player proof, but the way it is set up, it just makes life easy for everyone. And yes, the 49ers might be the best situation for a quarterback in the NFL. But also Brock Purdy just makes a few good plays every game. He offers that stuff outside of the offense, out of structure when the play breaks down that Jimmy G doesn't. As much as I love Jimmy G, he just doesn't have that element of his game. And while I think Jimmy G is probably better suited to run this offense, to just play point guard, find the open man, go through his reads quickly, and get it to the open guy, With how good and athletic defenses are, you can't do that every game, no matter how good you are. We'll talk about that more with Tua too, and the Dolphins. That's another offense where they do things like that. But if you have a quarterback that can make plays when the play breaks down, it just elevates you to another level. And it is kind of ridiculous how good the 49ers offense has been with Brock Purdy at quarterback. The Niners, I will still pick them to win because their defense is just on another level too. I mean, they lose their defensive coordinator and it just doesn't matter. They play like their hair is on fire. They're flying around the field. They've got elite talent at every level on the defense. It is in LA, but let's be honest, this is a home game for the Niners. There's going to be a lot of red in the stands. Shanahan historically, like, what is Kyle Shanahan's record against Sean McVay? It's pretty good, if I'm not mistaken. 49ers have won 7, including 6 in a row. This is a bit earlier. Like, this is a year older. But still, the 49ers usually have their way with the Rams. The Niners still are a better team. I am a little more optimistic about the Rams now because they did look pretty good. And Stafford looked pretty good, and maybe Stafford is back. If he is, they've got the advantage at quarterback. But the Niners are just the better team. They're just as well coached. This is a familiar environment for them. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I'm going to go the 49ers win 31-21. But it'll be a comfortable 10-point win for the 49ers. The 49ers will cover, I think. But I'm not ready to write off the Rams yet. If the Rams put up a decent fight, you start to wonder if maybe they could snag a wild card spot. Some of those lower wild card spots are up for grabs. They might be in the mix. We'll see. I am interested to see if Stafford and McVay can do it again. But I'm going to go the Niners with a 10-point win on the road. It really just does not matter. For all the fuss that's made about their quarterback, it just does not matter. It really doesn't. The rest of the team is so good. Giants-Cardinals, next game. We're cruising through. 11:34 now. I've got some games to preview. Then we're gonna talk some lines here a little bit. I might play prize picks today. I actually haven't looked at the lines too much, so I don't know if there's anything that jumps out. If you guys have any fantasy questions, betting questions, just questions about the week at all, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm talking a lot, but I appreciate you guys being here on this beautiful Sunday morning. 10 of you guys in here right now. We're having fun with these streams. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. It's Football Sunday. It does not get better than this. All right, Giants-Cardinals. Also a baseball matchup. Giants-Cardinals, get it? Haha. Anyways. Giants are a 4-point favorite on the road, which seems fair. They got humiliated last week against Dallas. And I talked about this game a little bit on my last stream. I'm not super worried about the Giants, depending on what the expectations are. I think this is a team that might be in the mix for the playoffs. They're certainly not a team that's like, oh yeah, they are going to make the playoffs. They've got good players. They seem to be well coached. They were just outmatched. I mean, you have to give some credit to Dallas. The Cowboys are just very, very good. We'll talk more about the Cowboys in a little bit with the Jets game that they've got coming up. Dallas is just that good. They really are. And maybe not 40 points better than the Giants, but it was just a perfect storm. I don't know. Opening night for the Cowboys, high expectations. You obviously don't want to get stomped on your home turf like that, but it's one game. The Giants are not a team I'm going to overreact too much over. They're a team that they will win these kind of games. They should beat the Cardinals. Also, I'm loving the shirt. Him. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. The Cardinals put up a decent fight against the Commanders. They were winning for a little bit. And you know what's funny? You know what's really funny? Jonathan Gannon actually seemed to coach pretty well last week. The defense was playing pretty well. People like to criticize Jonathan Gannon. He's a bit of a goofball with the shoo, and there's these weird clips. I kind of feel bad for him because in some ways I feel like he's almost being set up to fail. This could be a Texan situation where they hired him with the idea of he is just going to be a one and done coach, and then we're going to get a guy that we really like. And people are like, man, he just runs such a vanilla defense, and Eagles fans and players hated him. I tell you what, though, the Cardinals' defense played way above their talent level last week. Zaven Collins had a pretty good game. They moved him to edge. They still had him at linebacker some, but the Cardinals were in this game for most of it. They could have won. They played decent. Josh Dobbs is competent. I don't know. I mean, points are going to be hard to come by for this Cardinals team. And against the Giants defense that I think is much better than what we saw last week, the Giants should have their way. I feel pretty confident about the Giants winning this game. The Giants cannot lose this game. If the Giants lose this game, they're in big trouble. I still think the Cardinals might finish with the worst record, though. But they did not get rolled over. Credit to them for showing up. I can't remember who said it last week, but someone was like, these are people. Like, they're not going to, tank. Like, they'll be competitive. And you're absolutely right. There will be games like this where the Cardinals hang around a little bit. They're not going to lose 40-0 every game. Neither are the Giants. Daniel Jones looked a little flustered. He was getting killed back there. I don't know why they didn't take him out of the game sooner. I was starting to get concerned for his health a little bit. But I'll go Giants here. Giants 24, Cardinals 13. Comfortable win for the Giants. Cardinals won't be able to get much going on offense. Giants defense will bounce back in a big way. Daniel Jones will be good enough. And the Cardinals, man, I don't see a lot of points for them this season. The defense might be all right, though. We'll see. It was against the Commanders. It was Sam Howell's second career start ever, so maybe don't make too much out of it. But all right, let's check chat, get some coffee, and then we'll go to Jets-Cowboys, a game that does not have as much pop as it used to. The Dr. Gnome says, did I miss your comments on Titans versus Chargers? First of all, welcome to the stream, Dr. Gnome. Always good to see a fellow doctor in here. And second of all, Titans-Chargers was one of the first games that I went through. Just a little cliff notes for you, though. I'm assuming you might be a fan of one of those two teams. I have the Titans in an upset win at home. The Chargers are a little banged up. They're without Austin Eckler. I talked a lot about how he is an important piece of their offense. And this was a game going into the year that I looked at that maybe this is one of those ugly wins that the Titans get. And this is not me hating on the Chargers. Like, the Chargers offense came to play last week. They ran the ball really well, which really impressed me. Herbert played pretty well. That defense really let them down, though, again. And it's like, man, and some of it, you can't even put all of it on Brandon Staley. I actually think Brandon Staley is a better coach than he gets credit for. It's not his fault that J.C. Jackson just is not a good player, and he was just a product of, being really good with the Patriots. It's not his fault that, J.C. Jackson is, shoving a wide receiver, right before halftime to gift the Dolphins points. I mean, this is a Chargers defense that you can still kind of run the ball on. I could see Henry having a pretty good game. I could definitely see the Chargers winning, but I have the Titans in the upset. I don't know. This is one of the upset games that I have my eyes on. Jack says, thoughts on Rodgers returning. Caden says there's some decent lines. Oh, we'll talk about those decent lines. Don't worry. Thoughts on Rodgers returning. I saw that. We'll actually talk about that since we're on the Jets game now. So there were reports that apparently there's this innovative surgery that Rodgers wants to go under to try and return for the playoffs. I'm going to say, first of all, if this is true and if Aaron Rodgers is able to be back playing football by January, that would be one of the craziest injury recoveries that I've ever seen in my life. And Achilles is a brutal injury to come back from. Just ask Kyle Brandt. He hurt his Achilles, but he's back playing pickup basketball. That tweet was pretty funny. I didn't read this article, but I saw a lot about it. Knowing Aaron Rodgers, by innovative surgery, he's probably just going to go to some temple in the Andes Mountains in South America and get some spiritual treatment. Well-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Neil L. Atrache. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Interesting. I am only a football doctor. I am not an actual doctor. This might be a good question for my father, who's a pediatrician. But even that, I'm not sure how much he knows about Achilles injuries. That would be shocking. Cam Akers did it in 5 months. 5 months from the Super Bowl, according to Caden. Interesting. Okay. So, It's possible, I guess. I forgot about that. That's right. Cam Akers did come back from an Achilles. Man, I tell you what. This kind of raises the stakes for the Jets a little bit. If they could get Rodgers back for the playoffs, at this point, their goal should be to try and sneak in. We'll talk more about that in a sec. We got some more stuff in the chat that I'll talk about here. Dr. Gnome, I was digging last Sunday, so I couldn't watch the game. Our specialty is supposed to be defense, but dang, didn't look like defense I want the rest of the year. Week 1, overreaction, I know. So I'm going to take it you're a Chargers fan based off the defense underperforming, and specialty is supposed to be defense with Brandon Staley over at coach. It is a long season. There is talent there on the defense. Derwin James played a pretty good game. You have to give him props for being one of the best defensive players in the NFL. The pressure was there a little bit too. Like, the pass rush was kind of getting into his face. Some of it you can't even blame the defense. Like, some of it was just, like, Tua Tagovailoa probably played the best game of his life. And some of the throws he made were just ridiculous. That throw to third and 10 to Tyreek, that's just insane. Like, there's not too much you can do about that. When that connection is humming like that and Tua makes throws like that, I don't know that there's really any defense that can stop that. I mean, you can't be too hard on the defense, but I get what you're saying. Like, giving up, 36 points, that's always frustrating. Some of it is just the Dolphins' offense is maybe overpowered and broken. And maybe they have found the NFL's meta, if you know, you know. But we'll see, won't we? Anyways, Jets-Cowboys, here we go. So, Jets, big win on Monday night. Talk about an emotional win. I found myself rooting for the Jets in that game. I mean, I don't know. On September 11th in New York, those Jets fans had been waiting so long for a team like this to have it ripped away, but to overcome, for their defense to play like the Avengers and keep them in that game, for Zach Wilson to come off the bench and win the game. I mean, he didn't win them the game, but he had an awful pick to Matt Milano. But outside of that, he wasn't awful. He wasn't good for sure, and you still would like to see a little bit more from him. But they won an ugly game with him. That might be the game plan with Zach Wilson. Now, there's been a lot made about, are the Jets going to go get a quarterback? Are they going to go trade for someone, maybe sign someone? Obviously, Zach Wilson has had a very rough go of it so far. But I think at least for right now, you have to stick with Zach. I mean, obviously they have to today. They're not going to bring in Carson Wentz like a few hours in before kickoff to play. He's been in the building. He knows the offense. He knows the team, the receivers. And again, like, obviously I don't know him personally, but just based off reading his body language and just how he carried himself out there, he seems a little bit more mature this year. In the past, he's just looked in over his head. He's looked overwhelmed like a scared little kid, you know. Going from BYU and the offense that they run there to the NFL is a big change. BYU, he had a clean pocket every play. That offensive line was amazing. They were playing against not so great competition, and he was just like chucking it up, and his receivers are going and getting it, playing a little bit of hero ball. He could get away with that at BYU, not so much in the NFL. He just looked... Again, like, I don't want to read too much into this, but he looked a little more poised and confident and relaxed out there. And man, he just looked so relieved once the game ended. One thing that has just burned in my mind mentally, after the Jets win, ESPN's cameras caught him like walking off the field, and he like looks at the cameras and he smiles. He's like pumping his fist. He's like, man, what a big win. That's a big win for us. Let's go. And I don't know. I just couldn't help but smile. Like, I know much has been made about Zach Wilson, and maybe there's like some interesting stories about his off the field adventures, but he seems a little bit more mature this year. I don't know. I don't know if any of you guys have watched Friday Night Lights. Could we see like a Matt Saracen arc for Zach Wilson? We'll see. Aaron Rodgers is Jason Street. Zach Wilson is Matt Saracen. I've watched season 1 of that show. I've tried watching season 2. I've heard it's not as good. I'm like 2 episodes in. The reviews are right. It is not as good. It feels like a different show. I don't know if I'll stick with it or not. I do love the first season, though. First season is beautiful. Like, it's beautifully shot. Great music to it. Compelling story. I really like season 1, but season 2 has not been it so far. And the Dr. Gnome confirms, yep, Chargers fan. Well, hey, we'll see. We'll see. If the Chargers come away with a win against the Titans in what might be a trap game, if they can get the win, you feel pretty good. Anyways, I've been beating around the bush for this matchup a little bit. The Jets offense is definitely just limited with Wilson at quarterback. I mean, we've seen this story now before. We didn't even really get to see what it looked like with Aaron Rodgers. However, the running game is awesome, and Garrett Wilson is really just that good as a wide receiver. So sometimes maybe you can just chuck it up to Garrett Wilson and he can like bat it to himself and make an insane catch. Can they beat the Cowboys in Dallas? Probably not. I mean, I've hyped up the Cowboys a lot this offseason. They delivered big time last week, 40-0. I had the Cowboys winning this game even with Rodgers healthy. The Cowboys should really take care of business here. I mean, if you're Dallas, you don't want the Jets to hang around. The Jets hung around against the Bills last week. They were just hanging around there. And eventually they got something going on offense. All they needed was like one touchdown drive and then a field goal. If you're Dallas, you want to leave no doubt. Don't turn this into an ugly, low-scoring game. Your defense is good enough where you should be able to make some big plays, maybe force a few turnovers, hit the quarterback. And on offense, yeah, it's going to be tough sledding against a really good Jets defense. But if you're the offense, you tell yourself, you know what, 24 points is probably enough to win this game. Go get 24 points, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Go get that, and we win. We're at home. Henry says, if Wilson plays like he did last year, how long does it take for the Jets to pick up a veteran QB? Oh, man, if he plays like he did last year, it might not take long because last year was harsh. Last year was rough. If he plays like, let's take a look at the Jets' schedule. If he plays like he did last year, they've got a tough schedule. Talk about a tough 3 games coming up. Cowboys, Patriots, Chiefs. They could feasibly lose all 3 of these games. Broncos, a little bit easier. And then you got the Eagles. Man, what a tough schedule for the Jets. And that's without their 2 Bills games. Or sorry, their 2 Dolphins games. Their 1 other Bills game. Like, it lightens up at the end. If it's October 8th, let's say they lose to the Jets or they do not look well against the Jets and they don't play up to par in these 3 games, this is probably the deadline for them to figure out if they're going to get another quarterback or not. It's well before the trade deadline. It would give them plenty of time to find a deal. I think this game against the Broncos right here might be judgment day for Zach Wilson. If they can win this game, if Wilson looks decent, if maybe they can steal a win against the Patriots, if they can go 2-2 over these next 4 games, they might stick with Wilson. Anything else other than that, they're probably going to entertain getting another quarterback. I mean, they've looked into getting another quarterback before. Hey, Jets, you want Kirk? Pay up. I mean, we're not just going to give him to you. We have the leverage. Pay up, but we'll see. I don't think it's impossible that the Jets go 2-2 in that stretch, though, because the rest of the team is just so good, except for the offensive line. I have Dallas winning pretty comfortably. This Cowboys defense might be like not even just like best in the league. We might be looking at this defense as one of the best units of the 2000s if they can play up to par of what I think they can. Micah Parsons is that good. The rest of the defensive line is that good. The secondary is awesome. Maybe the deepest safety room in the NFL. 2 great corners. Dan Quinn, an elite defensive coordinator. One of the most awesome moments, at least if you like the Cowboys. If you're a Giants fan or if you hate the Cowboys, you probably didn't like this. But last week, the Sunday night game, one of the coolest images I saw was, I believe it was a 3rd down. At this point, it was the 2nd quarter. The game was pretty much already over. Micah Parsons was getting rest already at this point. They hadn't like fully pulled the starters yet, but they were like just rotating guys in and out. Everyone wanted to get in the game. It was like one of those games where like if you're on the defense, it's like, put me in, coach. Like, I want my turn to get a sack. And it shows Micah Parsons just arms crossed on the sideline, just looking down on the field. And it's just like, man, like you could just tell he's like looking at this defense like, look at what we built, man. This is a special unit. Against a Jets offensive line that got bullied around a little bit by the Bills. And I think the Bills defense is great. This Cowboys defense is better, in my opinion. I am a little scared about Zach Wilson getting put on the ground a lot, and the running game just might not be there as much. especially with like Mozzie Smith coming in now, Osa Odigizua up the middle. Mozzie Smith they brought in for games like these because you could kind of run the ball on the Cowboys some last year. Their linebackers aren't special. Leighton Vander Esch is like all right. He's not as good as he once was, but he had a decent bounce back year last year. But they brought in big Mozzie Smith for games like this so teams couldn't run the ball as much. If the Cowboys can take away Breece Hall in this Jets running game, I think they comfortably win. I will go Cowboys win 28-14. Welcome to the stream, CB. Hope you're doing well too. Happy Sunday, man. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you back in here. We've got the regulars back in here now. Man, it feels like we're back like at a sports bar or something, you know? The regular customers are starting to file in what promises to be another great NFL Sunday. But I'm going to have the Cowboys moving to 2-0 here. I don't know that there's going to be too many games that this Cowboys team loses this year. I had them as the number 1 seed in the NFC and as the NFC Super Bowl representative. I'm feeling pretty good about that right now. It's one game, granted, but I don't know. The Jets are going to enter a very tough stretch of their schedule. If they can somehow go 2-2, I think they stick with Zach Wilson because why not? It is worth noting, and I said this on Thursday, Robert Saleh said this in his press conference, which he is statistically right. The Jets started out 5-2 with Zach Wilson last year before like Breece Hall went down and Elijah Vera Tucker went down. They were winning games with Zach Wilson last year. The bottom kind of fell off, but if Wilson can be marginally better, I could see them winning 9 or 10 games. And in a tough AFC, that might not be enough to make the playoffs, but it might. I could see this team having a winning record, even with Zach Wilson. They are that good. Only a few more games to go here. We got Commanders-Broncos next. Jack says, signing Gilmore was huge for the Cowgirls. That's right. You don't really like the Cowboys, do you? No, Gilmore is big. You could argue he's the best corner 2 in the NFL right now. I mean, you could argue he's better than Trayvon Diggs. Diggs made a lot of strides just as a pure cover corner last year. And with Gilmore there, he can kind of go back to hunting for some picks some more. They have a heck of a duo in Gilmore and Diggs. Gilmore is not washed. Gilmore is still very much good. Maybe not Defensive Player of the Year good, but if you have Stephon Gilmore on the other team's number 2 wide receiver, you feel great about that matchup. And again, I mean, they just have great players on every level of that defense, and they're well coached. It's in Dallas. If you have the Cowboys defense in fantasy, you're probably feeling pretty good about yourselves because they went crazy last week, and they could go crazy again this week. Random fantasy question. Mike Evans or Waddle? So I never want to go against the Dolphins offense because they are a fantasy goldmine. We'll talk a little bit more about this Patriots matchup in a little bit, but let's see how Jalen Waddle did last week because obviously Tyreek Hill's the number 1 guy. You know, he's going to get most of the targets. They are going to get Waddle the ball too, obviously. And I really like Jalen Waddle. I mean, this was a quiet game for Waddle, 4 for 78. That's pretty good. I might go Waddle. That's tough because, again, like this Patriots defense is a tough matchup. And we'll talk more about this Dolphins-Patriots game in a little bit because I've got some takes brewing in the chamber. I would go Waddle, but I would not hate if you started Evans either because Evans has a much more favorable matchup against the Bears. I just see this maybe being a slower, lower scoring game. And Evans was pretty good last week, but I will give the slight edge to Waddle. Waddle has the higher upside too. Like Waddle could easily go for 200 yards. He's just such a game breaker, elite speed. And again, this Dolphins offense, they get guys open like no one else. It's beautiful. We're going to talk about pre-snap motion a little bit when we get to the Dolphins-Patriots game. And then spinning the safeties on the defensive side for the Patriots. It's going to be a chess match. All right, but first we got to talk about Commanders-Broncos. The Denver Broncos, if you know, you know. All right. The Broncos, disappointing loss at home in week 1 against a Raiders team that I thought that they could have beat at home. And it's the same story again with the Broncos. Heaven forbid the Broncos ever score more than 20 points. Heaven forbid they ever hit the 20s on offense. I mean, they actually looked decent in the first half too. Like they put together a few good drives. Russell Wilson was playing fairly well, and it's like, hey, like, okay, here we go. Broncos country, let's ride. They stopped riding so much in the second half. I mean, they got 3 points in the second half. It was a Will Lutz field goal on a 16-play drive that took a lot of time, but they couldn't finish it off. Now, the defense still played pretty well. They lose their defensive coordinator. And you look at the Broncos' defense, and it's not, like, littered with studs. Like, obviously, Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain are great players. Outside of that, you look at this defense, it's like, how are they, like, playing so well? But they've just got, like, a lot of solid players. They don't have, like, a glaring weakness. I will say, it's pretty impressive how the Broncos were able to get so much for Bradley Chubb. He's a guy that didn't look that great last week. And I loved him coming out of college, but he's never really lived up to his billing. Commanders got an ugly win over the Cardinals, and, I mean, a win is a win. Ron Rivera is kind of coaching for his job. He's probably got the hottest seat in the NFL right now, especially with new ownership that's probably desperate to make a change. Sam Howell looked fine, which I guess you live with. The Commanders' defense has superpowers, I will say, especially that defensive line. It's going to be a fun matchup, the Commanders' defensive line versus the Broncos' offensive line. I will be watching the trenches for this one. Denver is a 4-point favorite. I feel like 4 is maybe a bit much. I might say the Commanders are a better team. I am going to go with the Commanders here. There's not too much thought going into this. I mean, they're pretty even. I really like this Commanders' defensive line, though. If they can take over the game late, the Broncos just still, I mean, they're going up against a Raiders defense that is much worse on paper than this Commanders defense, and they got 16 points. I mean, can Denver score 20 on this Washington defense? I don't think they can. Now, can Washington score 20 on this Denver defense? That's not a given either. I'll go Commanders win 20-16. And the Broncos' streak of just not scoring 20 points again. Like, man, I don't know. All right, we'll see. Some more activity in the chat here. Gavin says, Pats will probably try and scheme Hill out of the game, might allow Waddle more opportunities. That's a great point. Welcome to the stream, Gavin. Good to see you in here. Hope you're doing well. Happy Sunday. I mean, you're right. That is like the MO of Bill Belichick. He will take away the top guy. He will do everything in his power to take away the top guy. And when you're the Dolphins, you might be okay with that because Waddle is a very good second guy to have. I could see the target distribution being a little more even between Hill and Waddle this week. Jalen Waddle and Tua, they have that connection. They've played together for a while now. I do really like Jalen Waddle. His drop issues kind of got magnified in the playoffs against the Bills last year, but sometimes he'll just have a game with the dropsies. I don't really care because when he's not dropping the ball, he is just so good. He's a great route runner. Like, he's not even just like a deep threat. Like, he's a great route runner. He gets open in this offense, and if you can get him like 3 yards of separation, have fun trying to catch him. I mean, good luck. Oh, and big shout out to Tom for introducing me to you. Oh, well, shout out Tom, man. Hey, even as a Vikings fan, you know, like I've like seen his content a little bit. Seems like a pretty funny guy, pretty cool guy. I respect the heck out of him for using his platform to like spread positivity and like build up smaller creators like me. Shout out to Tom, man. Hey, we're glad you're here. You know, welcome to the Dr. Pigskin family. We're growing right now, and we love having new people in here. So welcome to the stream. I appreciate it. He seems like a good guy. I don't know him personally, obviously. It was also like his birthday yesterday, wasn't it? I saw that on Twitter, but that was pretty cool. You know, one day, if this channel can take off a little bit, I too would like to maybe use this platform to spread positivity. I like his mantra of chaotic good. But yeah, I watched some of his videos yesterday. Funny guy. I like the if the NFL was really scripted one. That one was pretty funny. You guys should go watch that. All right, here we go. Second game of the week, the Sunday night game. You cannot complain about this Sunday night matchup. This is a coaching masterclass. We might have one of the brightest offensive minds going up against one of the brightest defensive minds. We have the young offensive guru versus the old sage, the defensive wizard. It's in Foxborough. The lights are bright. Huge seeding implications potentially. The Patriots looked pretty good last week. In my opinion, they outplayed the Eagles. Tough break for them not to win. They couldn't make the play on fourth down to try and win the game. This is a Patriots team that's probably fired up after losing a close game, and they are pretty good. Versus a Dolphins team that, man, oh man, oh man. Again, I don't want to overreact too much from week one. That is like the motto of this stream. Don't overreact too much. However, I was pretty high on the Dolphins, like right after the draft. They were like the offseason champions. They go get Jalen Ramsey. They didn't do much in the draft, but this is a team that had a pretty good year last year. They improved their defense a lot. Young, improving defense. They bring in Vic Fangio as well, and I think, oh man. Like there was a point in time where I had the Dolphins in the Super Bowl back in like early May, which is crazy. And then I kind of backed off a little bit. Right, they had some injury problems. Teron Armstead got hurt. He didn't play last week. Ramsey got hurt. And, you know, you always hold your breath with Tua when it comes to injuries. And, you know, down the stretch last season, their offense wasn't as high-powered. That Chargers game last year maybe kind of exposed them a little bit, I thought. Brandon Staley just had his defensive backs press the Dolphins. They're like, go ahead, you know. Tua, make a play outside of structure. Beat us outside of the Mike McDaniel offense. And he didn't. And you think, man, like, I don't know. There's just weird vibes with this Dolphins team. And then they had the game that they had on Sunday last week. I had the Dolphins losing last week. I did. I said that losing Teron Armstead was a big deal. I worried about that offensive line without him. I worried about Tua being able to make plays outside of the structure of the offense. I worried about this Chargers defense just doing what they did last year. I worried about the defense a little bit more without Jalen Ramsey and learning a new scheme, which we'll talk about the defense in a little bit. But offensively, oh my goodness, the Dolphins could not have played a better game. That was the best game of Tua Tagovailoa's career. I went back and watched darn near every play from this game on the All-22 coaches film. Oh man, Tua was on one. And I watched the second half, most of the second half of this game live, had it up on the TV. I was watching it with some friends, and man, shout out Oscar. I don't know if you're in here right now, if you're going to watch this later, but Oscar, you and I were talking about this. Tua Tagovailoa just looked like a different quarterback out there. He legitimately looks like a better player. And I've always kind of supported Tua. Like even last year with the narrative of like, man, he can't do much outside of the offense. Like you take away his first read and he just can't do much. You can point at the Chargers game or the Packers game on Christmas. That was pretty rough. And, you know, it's fair to be concerned, but I said, you know, like he still hits the throws. He's very accurate. And like he's hitting the guys in stride. They might be like, oh, it's just short passes to Tyreek and Waddle and then they do the rest. And much is made about Tua underthrowing guys on deep passes. You will always see him hit the wide receivers in stride on the shorter passes, though. Like pretty much anything 20 yards and in, he is putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. And that's why they can get so many yards after the catch. It might, like it's just crossing routes or slants or whatever. Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, they never have to slow down for those balls, though. And when they're that fast and they can just accelerate and you get them with a running start, when you send like Tyreek Hill in motion across the formation and you get maybe the fastest player in the NFL a running start and you don't know if he's going to go deep or if he's just going to cut his route off and go underneath, you can't stop that because Tua will put it exactly where it needs to be. So when the offensive scheme is going, you can't stop it. Now, there was a recipe, however, to try and stop it. You get pressure into his face. You press the receivers. You pretty much force him to beat you outside of those shorter throws where they just cook over the middle. Give the Chargers credit. They knew what worked last time. They showed up. They tried to do the same thing. However, this time, and with a worse offensive line, with pressure in his face, Tua Tagovailoa came to play. I mean, I talked about this throw already. That throw to Tyreek Hill on 3rd down and 10 with the game on the line. They needed the conversion. And he just steps up in the pocket off platform. Doesn't even set his feet. With the deep ball, the thing that he struggled with, like underthrowing guys. And he puts it on the money. And then he puts it on the money to Tyreek again in the red zone. Like, he just looks like a better quarterback. And if Tua Tagovailoa can keep making plays like that, even when the play does break down, good luck stopping this Dolphins offense. The defense was a little concerning. They gave up a lot to the Chargers. The Chargers ran the ball like crazy on them. And that is the one concern you usually have with these Fangio defenses. when they play so far back, right? They're dropping guys deep down the field, a lot of too high safety looks, favorable looks to run the ball. And credit the Chargers, a team who usually doesn't run the ball well. They saw that and they're like, you know what? We're going to run the ball. And it really worked. Christian Wilkins is a great player, but he's learning a new role on this defense. He's playing a different alignment. There might be a bit of a learning curve with that. And the secondary just is not as good without Jalen Ramsey out there. When Ramsey comes back, you're going to feel a lot better about the secondary because I still think Jalen Ramsey is a very good corner. But the defense is a little concerning as for right now when they're trying to learn a new scheme and they're just not at full strength. This Patriots team, I just really want to see what Bill Belichick is going to do against this Dolphins offense. Because you could almost argue that like the Patriots, they're like doing the wacky stuff on defense right now. The Patriots play a lot of dime defense. They've got 6 defensive backs out on the field. And usually it's like defensive backs that can play any spot. They play positionless football defensively. Jalen Mills, for example, he can play safety, he can play corner. Sometimes they'll even blitz him. Same with like Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar can play anywhere on the field except for like maybe defensive line. And so you've got 6 of those guys, right? They'll usually have 2 of them up near the line of scrimmage, looking like they could blitz. They could come up, they could blitz, or they could drop off. And then you've got the 2 deep safeties down the field, and then you've got other defensive backs sort of functioning as like the corners trying to take away the middle. Now that's already scary enough, right? When you've got all these different talented players, which they're all very good in their own right too. They've got Jabril Peppers too, Christian Gonzalez. They've got both of the Joneses. I mean, this is a very deep secondary. The really scary part is what they'll do is they'll spin the safeties, spin the defensive backs pre-snap. The Dolphins like to run pre-snap motion to try and figure out if it's man or zone coverage to get their wide receivers like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle a running start, right? And just kind of confuse the defense. The defense is like, we don't know what the heck this is going to be. Is Tyreek Hill getting a running start because he's going to try and block? Or is it because he's going to try and take off deep down the field? Is he going to cut himself off and go short? If you're a defensive back and you're playing man coverage, you're pooping your pants because you don't know if Tyreek Hill is just going to run by you. And you can't give him too much cushion because he just cuts down underneath. And all of a sudden he's got 5 yards of separation, 10 yards down the field. And he's probably running for another 20 yards before you even touch him. But what the Patriots do, they do like the defensive version of that where they just spin the safeties. They'll have guys come up from deep. They'll have their deep guys come up. They'll have their guys that are playing up drop back. And if you're an offense, you just don't know who is going to do what. And they usually do it right before the snap. They'll usually do it as the motion is going on. So it really is just going to be a chess match. I am so excited for the drives when the Dolphins offense is on the field and the Patriots defense is on the field. What are these 2 coaches going to do before the snap to try and confuse the other guy? These are 2 of the brightest minds in football going head to head. A big divisional game. I have the Patriots winning this one, which is crazy because the Dolphins, man, they looked so good. But the defense concerns me a little bit, especially the running game. Ramondre Stevenson was very quiet last week. Ezekiel Elliott got a lot of the work, a lot more work than I anticipated. I think he was like sick, was he not? Like Ramondre Stevenson was not at 100% if I'm not mistaken. So we saw a lot of Zeke. If Stevenson is back and better this week, that's going to help a lot. I do think the Patriots are going to come out and try and run the ball a decent amount, try and maybe control that time of possession. They saw what the Chargers did last week. Just control the ball, run the ball, keep their offense on schedule. They do not want this game to turn into a track meet. If the Dolphins offense still gets explosive plays, the Patriots might be in a world of trouble because this is not a team that's built to come from behind. I'm honestly impressive that they were able to come out of the hole that they dug themselves in against the Eagles last week. They were down a few scores early. They managed to come back and almost win the game. That's actually a pretty positive sign if you're the Patriots because you're not built to play like that. You want to play with the lead. If this Dolphins team strings together a few explosive plays early and they're up if the Dolphins get up 2 scores, that's a little concerning. You cannot let the Dolphins get up by 2 possessions if you're the Patriots. But this defense is just so good. They're so well coached. I feel like Bill Belichick has been waiting for this game. And I feel like he's got something cooked up for this offense. I don't know. I could see the Dolphins winning this game. This is not an indictment on the Dolphins whatsoever. This is a very good-looking offense, a very good-looking team. I do kind of like how the Patriots match up, though. They just have so many good defensive backs. They can try and contain this passing attack. I don't think Tyreek Hill is going for 200 yards again. I think if you're the Patriots, you live with Tyreek going for like 100. That's just how good he is in this offense. I'll go the Patriots winning a close one, 28-25. Oh, it's going to be close, though. I am up and ready for this game. I'm excited. Arun says, Mahomie. Yes, sir. Shout out Patrick Mahomes. It's his birthday today. He plays football. I am a Vikings fan, but I love Mahomes. It's like being a LeBron fan in the NFL. Like obviously my team will have priority over Mahomes because he's just one player, and I've been rooting for the Vikings since I was like 8 years old versus like Mahomes coming into the league. Or it's like liking LeBron or liking Messi. Like if you just love the sport, at a certain point you just have to respect greatness. And again, like some people can get annoyed with how much people talk about Mahomes and like how much praise is heaped on him. But he really is that good. It is like we're watching like the LeBron James, the Messi of NFL right now. I mean, I don't know. I appreciate his greatness. I love the fact that we are all alive to watch maybe the most talented quarterback ever in his prime. It's pretty awesome. So I do like Mahomes. I love watching him play football, man. He has changed the game for the better. He makes football more fun. The Dr. Gnome says, the big question for Miami is that Hill is going to end up leaving after this year, if I remember correctly. Well, he said he was going to retire after his contract expired, which would be pretty young for him. He's 29 years old. But if I'm not mistaken, his contract runs out after the 2024 season, if I'm not mistaken. And if he keeps his word, that means he has 2 years left with the Dolphins. And that is sort of the Dolphins window. Yeah, so okay, he has a potential out in 2025. I think that's just the way that they structured his contract so that he costs less this year. These 2 years are the years the Dolphins are trying to win. If you watched my last Super Bowl, the Super Bowl Blueprint video, the Dolphins are another team that are trying to seize the day. Tua's a little bit cheaper right now. They go out, they get Jalen Ramsey because they sort of play around with Tyreek's contract to make him cheaper now. You know? This right here is the Dolphins' window. This is when they're trying to win, 23 or 24. This is where they're going all in. So if I'm not mistaken, it would be 2024 that he would leave and he would just retire. He said that earlier this offseason. So we'll see. That is something to keep an eye out on, though. Good point. I forgot about that. Jack says, you're drinking the Patriots Kool-Aid. I am. I mean, hey, they have maybe the greatest head coach of all time. They played pretty well last week. And it is just incredible what happens when you swap out Matt Patricia for an actual serious offensive coordinator. They looked like the better team last week. I did have the Patriots in the playoffs in my preseason predictions. Not the stream, but I revised them a little bit. This could be a playoff team, but they need to win this game. They need to win this game. Starting 0-2 after a close loss last week and then losing to your divisional rival this week, that would be tough. And to the Dolphins' credit, Tua historically has played pretty well against the Patriots too. I don't know that the Patriots have beat Tua, actually. I think Tua might be undefeated against the Pats. But I'm beyond excited for this game. You could make a good argument this is game of the week. I still think it's Chiefs-Jags, but man, you can't go wrong with either. And I'm glad that they're not going on at the same time. I'm glad that I can watch this game, and I'm glad that this game has its own spot on Sunday night. Here's a fun trick before I move on. And this is just like another little teaser leading up to my next video. I mean, you don't actually have to do this, but just watch how often the Dolphins will send someone in motion tonight. I would not be surprised if the Dolphins send a player in motion on over 80% of their offensive snaps. They're going to do some weird stuff with Tyreek Hill. You're going to see him like almost start like in line, like as a tight end. He might crouch down a little bit, and then he's just going to motion outside. Sometimes they'll motion him across the entire formation, but something they did a lot more last week that they didn't do as much of last year is they will keep Tyreek Hill on the same side, and they'll start him in tight near the line, and then they'll just motion him out wide. And it just puts – it's so scary to see as a defensive back because you don't know what he's going to do. And it's lose-lose. You either play too far off, he stops his route, okay, 10-yard catch, and he's going for like 20 after the catch. Or if you like press him, you're playing one-on-one press coverage against Tyreek Hill. He is going to run by you. The Dolphins hit a big play last week. That touchdown to Tyreek, I think it was in the third quarter. That's what happens when you try and like take away the underneath stuff. He's like, all right, cool, I'll just run by. This is how he puts up these just insane stat lines. All right, 2 more games. We're going to dive into prize picks, and then we're going to wrap this up because football's coming. Less than 45 minutes away. Let's go, baby. All right, Monday night doubleheader. I don't love the Monday night doubleheader. I don't like how these 2 games overlap. I wish this one would start a little bit earlier. Like, I think it'd be cool to, like, Monday night game at, like, 5 o'clock as people are getting off work. Personally. That's how I would do it. I don't like how these 2 games overlap, but it is what it is. Saints-Panthers. Man, if I'm going to be right about the Panthers winning the division, they need to win this game. It's their home opener against the Saints team that looked a little out of sync. The defense played pretty well. Derek Carr was all over the place. To his credit, he had a pretty good fourth quarter. Hit some nice throws down the stretch, but struggled a little bit early. The Saints, I mean, this is a big game from both these teams, especially depending on how the Falcons-Packers game goes, and even the Bucs game. Like, there's a chance where the Falcons and Bucs both start out 2-0. And again, this is a wide-open division where, like, 9 wins might be enough to win it. So you gotta get a win here. Also, I don't think I made an official pick for the Patriots-Dolphins game. I talked so much about it. I'll go, oh, wait, no, I did. I'd write Patriots 28, Dolphins 25. We're sticking with that. Anyways. So, the Panthers offense really looked bad last week. It was rough. The wide receivers did not look good. They were not getting open. They were not finishing their routes. Bryce Young looked a little flustered. I will say, to my credit, though, their offensive line was not atrocious like some people were saying they were going to be. The offensive line looked much better than in preseason. I feel a little good about that. The running game was not awful. Miles Sanders had that killer fumble. Ugh, that was bad. That might have lost them the game. But the offensive line looked all right. Still not quite at the level it was last year, but it's one game. I still think with how young they are, they can get back up to speed a little bit. They're going to need to because their wide receivers are not going to be winning them any games. They're going to need to win because Bryce Young has a lot of time and he can extend the play and find someone open when it breaks down or just running the ball. And their defense is going to have to play lights out, which they did for the most part last week. Their defense came to play. You want to talk about a guy that's had rough injury luck, though. Man, it just stinks that J.C. Horn is hurt. I love J.C. Horn so much. He is an unbelievable corner. And I believe he's going to be out for a while. He's on injured reserve. I don't think he's out for the season. But man, it's gutting that he has not been able to stay healthy because when he plays, he is so good. You could argue when he's on the field, he is a top 10 corner. He is so good. He will miss at least 4 weeks. That is going to hurt because one of the things I've talked about, the Panthers' biggest weakness on defense is corner outside of J.C. Horn. Their corner room is not deep. I think that will probably be the difference in this game. The Saints wide receivers played pretty well. Olave looked good, obviously. Shaheed looked pretty good. Michael Thomas was there. That will probably be one of the biggest differences in this game. That and if the Saints defense can just continue to play at a pretty good level. They forced 3 picks last week. If they can get a turnover or 2, I feel pretty good about the Saints winning this game on the road. Can Bryce Young take care of the ball a little bit more? That's something to watch out for the Panthers. And how is this secondary going to hold up without J.C. Horn? It could be pretty bad, which is unfortunate because the rest of the defense does look pretty good. Brian Burns had a pretty good game. Derek Brown had a heck of a game. They have good players on this defense, but that secondary just might sink them. The Panthers could finish last in the division. I'm reaching the acceptance stage of grief with that. I know it's one game and I don't want to overreact, but man, I recognize that I was taking a big risk and I was gambling on upside and ceiling and like in a vacuum type of stuff. And it just might not happen this year with this team. They're still rebuilding though. Give them maybe 2 years. We'll see. The Saints are trying to win the division. I mean, that's why they got Derek Carr. It was an ugly win last week, but again, you take those wins. Those wins add up. I think they're going to get the win here. I'm going to go 19-17. It's going to be a gross game. Saints win 19-17. I'm loving the weird scores that I'm picking. Henry says Brian Burns is the truth. He's going to get paid big time. Yeah. I mean, if you're the Panthers, pay the man. I get you don't want to like spend too much money. I also think it's crazy that the Panthers missed out on like first round picks from the Rams. What did they offer for Brian Burns? And you know what's crazy? If the Rams had Brian Burns right now, oh my goodness, we might be looking at this team a little bit differently. They offered 2 first-round picks and a second for Brian Burns, and they said no. And I get that Brian Burns is a really, really good player. Oh, but if you're the Panthers, whatever. That was their choice. Hey, they like the guy in their building. I respect it. I honestly respect it to an extent because they want to keep their own guys. And again, he is a good player. It's not a guarantee that those 3 draft picks would produce anything of worth. But oh my goodness. Like now you're like in a contract squabble and you're not sure if you want to pay him. Why didn't you just take the picks then? Easier said than done. Easy for me to say. All right, one more game. This one's a pretty big one too. Classic rivalry matchup. Browns-Steelers. Here we go. The Steelers team is getting a bit of pop leading into the season. They had a great preseason. Of course, you can't make too much of the preseason, but they made some good moves. They're always well coached. Mike Tomlin is always going to have them ready to play. Kenny Pickett looked better, right, in preseason. We heard all about how Kenny Pickett looked better. Maybe this offense wouldn't be so bad. The defense looks pretty good, and they just get boat raced by the 49ers. And it is the 49ers. Like, the 49ers might be boat racing a lot of people this year. But that's a tough loss if you're the Steelers. If you're the Steelers, you go into that game hoping to be, like, competitive in that. They looked at least a tier or 2 below the 49ers in that one. And now they got to turn around and play the Cleveland Browns, whose defense might have had the performance of week 1. This defense was so good week 1. It is incredible how good of a defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is when he's on. And just the talent that they have. Like, Myles Garrett has help now. Myles Garrett has never had help. I've always been someone that has said Myles Garrett is better than TJ Watt. This seems to be a big debate amongst NFL fans. It definitely helps that, like, the 2 teams are divisional rivals. I'm sorry, and this is not TJ Watt disrespect because he played pretty well. Myles Garrett is a much better player than TJ Watt. This is what happens when Myles Garrett gets help. That defensive line is disgusting. I never want to pick against the Steelers in a big spot like this because, again, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers we're talking about. They have earned the respect as an organization of a team that is never, like, they're never going to be bad. They're well coached. They do things so well over there. I really don't want to pick against the Steelers because of that, because they're well coached, they're at home. And I don't want to overreact to the Browns' performance in week 1 too much because, to the credit of some people in here, right, Watson still didn't look that good. That's a little concerning. The running game was going. I mean, that's just to be a given. They've got a great offensive line, Nick Chubb. Like, they'll run the ball pretty well. They got that going. I mean, they scored 24 points, which was enough to win. I'm going to go with the Browns. I am. I think they're going to win in the trenches, and that's the difference. The Steelers made improvements to their offensive line, but I don't think Broderick Jones played last week. It still didn't look the greatest. Matt Canada, man. The clock is ticking on you to turn into a decent play caller because the Steelers they run the same stuff. They have a very predictable offense. And Najee Harris has not looked that great. The running game has not looked that great. This Browns defense could, hold the Steelers to, 14 points, and that might be enough. Again, I never feel good picking against the Steelers. But we'll see. I'm going to go with the Browns here. I'm going to say the Browns win 24-17. Browns win by a touchdown on the road. That would be a big win for Cleveland. This is a big year for Cleveland. A lot is riding on this season. Even though they didn't have Super Bowl expectations coming in, with how much they're paying that quarterback and how long of a leash Stefanski and the management has gotten, It's time to see some results. They saw him week 1. We'll see if they can continue. I'm going to go Cleveland by 7, though. Again, I never feel good, but that defense, man. All right, time for some talk for the people in the desert. Let's go over some lines a little bit. Caden said there were some good lines. I'm curious. Caden, if you're still in here, what are some lines that jump out to you? I'm going to be scrolling through this a little bit. Again, I have not looked at this, so I don't know. I'm probably just going to play one slip today. There's like no promo or anything, which stinks. I did not have a good week on here last week. I'll tell you that. I didn't play on Thursday. We're not going to go too crazy. We might just put $20 on something I feel really good about. Chat, if there's any players you like to go off today, let me know. Doesn't even have to be like something you see, but just like, hey man, maybe I feel like, I don't know, Raheem Mostert has a good game tonight or something. Let me know what you guys think, what you guys like. I'm looking through right now. I kind of like the yards more than like touchdowns because yards can accumulate. I feel like I have a bit more illusion of control with that. Not loving any of these so far. I'm only going to play if I see something I like, but Caden says Waddle over 61 and Gibbs over 8.5 carries or his fantasy score. Well, let's take a look at Waddle. Wow. I mean, yeah, like it's up to 63 now, but again, Waddle had a quiet game, right? He had a quiet game, and he still got like 74 yards. That Patriots defense is scary, though. I never like betting against the Patriots defense. Jack says, peace out, my boy. Might be on box tonight. Peace out, Jack. Hey, thanks for being on the stream tonight, man. Good to see you as always. Great to talk some ball. Have a great Sunday. You have a good day, Jack. We'll catch you later, man. Caden says, Bijan also has over an 11.5 fantasy score, which I like. That's pretty low. I mean, I get he wasn't used a lot, but... Oh, it's up to 14 now. They keep raising the lines. They keep raising it. I don't know if maybe you're on underdog and maybe the scoring is different there. He hit that last week, did he not? Yeah, he hit it pretty easily. The Packers can get run on a little bit. Okay. Also, Gibbs. Gibbs against the Seahawks? Man, a lot was made about Gibbs not being used much last week. He's getting used to it. What's the line on Kirk yards? I'm assuming Christian Kirk. That's not a bad one. 43.5. I kind of like that one. I could see Christian Kirk bouncing back. He was very quiet last week. I don't hate that one. I think Christian Kirk and Bijan might be the two that I like right now. 43.5. He had one catch for 9 yards last week. I really struggle to see that happening again. Doug Peterson loves Christian Kirk. He was the leader in targets last year. I get Ridley is there now. But he should have some decent looks. And Trevor has a good connection with him too. I don't hate this one. Caden says Gibbs had 7 carries and the coach said he was going to get more usage. Fair points. It still is a little... I don't hate the Gibbs one either. I mean, I think... Did he not hit it last week? No, he did not. No, he's... Against Seattle... I mean, hey, when he did get the ball, he looked really good. He should have scored a touchdown. He slipped. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. The Vikings quarterback. Okay. Are you talking about just like for the season? Because I think since he already played on Thursday, they won't have the line for him next week out yet. But I'm sure like his season line has got to be pretty big right now because he is on pace to throw for like 6,000 yards. We just throw the ball every play. I guess they don't have anything for Kirk right now. But yeah, don't worry about it. All good, man. I might give you credit though for the Christian Kirk one though. I actually don't hate that. Christian Kirk and Jahmyr Gibbs might be the play. Let's see. I'm tempted. See, look at that. Like he had a quiet game, but he's usually pretty consistent. 44 yards is not that much for the second option in what should be a high-powered passing attack. Hey, it's all good, man. I try and forget about that game too. Don't you worry about it. I've moved on from that game. Honestly, the Vikings didn't even play that bad. The run defense was atrocious, but the offense came to play. And the passing defense wasn't terrible. They let up a few big plays, which you don't like to see, but that's just kind of built in. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk. I'm going to give you credit for Christian Kirk. I kind of like it. And you know what? That gives me another excuse to watch this game. We're going to go Christian Kirk and Jahmyr Gibbs. Shout out to Dr. Gnome and Caden for putting this one together. Way to put me on, guys. All right, we're going to go. I like fantasy score because Gibbs is a guy that's just going to be used in different ways. He can get points for catches, receiving yards, and all the rushing stuff. 12.5 is a little big, but also like what? If he gets 4 catches for 40 yards, he's already at 8, and then he just needs to be a decent runner. We'll go Gibbs and Kirk. All right, we're locking it in. $20. This is the only one we're going to play. If this one doesn't hit, we might have to take a break from Prize Picks for a while. Again, I'm not sponsored or anything. This is just me being fun. But here we go. All right, Christian Kirk, 44 yards, and Jahmyr Gibbs over 12.5 fantasy score. I like it. Hey, shout out to you guys. Thanks for putting me on. We're less than 30 minutes away now. I'm getting hungry for some burgers. I think me and Christina are going to go cook lunch now and get the games going. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too. We're going to bring it back to full screen for me just for a quick sec here. But, hey, it was another great Pigskin pregame stream, another great Sunday morning. I've had fun talking ball with you guys here. Over about like 2.5 hours now we've been doing this. When I originally did this, I scheduled it to be like 2 hours, but we're going over. But honestly, that's okay. I kind of like that. We're just kind of doing our thing out here. Eventually, I'm going to try and get a stream deck so I can make some graphics, make it more visually appealing. Me and Caden are also going to be cooking up like some fun different games or challenges for me to do. I just genuinely enjoy doing this. I mean, I will probably try and stream twice a week. We'll do the pregame stream, and then we'll probably do a watch party like we did on Thursday. I don't know. If I don't have to work on Thursday, that Giants 49ers game is looking pretty interesting. I've got a Kittle jersey too, so I might wear that for the stream, but we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We've got 9 people in here right now. We've got people coming in and out. Thanks to all the regulars and anyone new here. Go check out my channel. Go see what else I've got going on. I hope the audio was good for you guys today. I'm happy that I was able to fix that. Maybe I don't need a new mic. I'll probably get one at some point because this one is pretty old. But my coffee is gone. Football's almost ready. I'm hungry. Let's go have a great Sunday. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. That's all I've got. Follow me on Twitter if you don't. Check out my channel. But yeah, peace. The doctor's out. Y'all have a good Sunday.